Folks, we are live. Welcome to your Tuesday here on WCBS. I'm your host, Jeff Hicks, and with me tonight are my two co-hosts for this wonderful show, The High Council. First off, you know him, you love him, all the way from the Rippaverse. Say hello to Andy Andrew.
What's going on, Jeff? What is going on, chat? Welcome back to the best show on a Tuesday night. It is The High Council. It is time for a fantastic show, as you have come to know from us gentlemen here. We are men of taste. We're men of culture. Ever since Jeff decided to come back on camera finally, we brought the Dapper back to YouTube.
Yeah,
you know, we're doing the whole sport jackets thing, the whole shebang. We just got to get there we go. There it is. Look at that. He decided to join us.
All right.
Excellent. Cheers to that.
Cheers indeed. Now, let's give a shout out and introduce our other co-host for the evening, the man in the bow tie. Say hello to Script Doctor.
Hey, happy to be here this evening, guys. It's exciting day and exciting announcements that I see.
Yes, folks in the chat, I do want a steak dinner every night.
I always want a steak dinner.
Yeah, are you a medium rare guy? What's
medium rare maximum? That is the furthest acceptable level of done for a steak. Like no more than that. Not bleeding, not eating.
Suit Doctor, how do you feel about your steaks?
I can take them almost in any way. Basically, I eat it and I can digest it in any fashion, so long as it's not leather. Like that's just it. That's the threshold. Once it becomes leather, then I'm wearing it, not eating it.
Yeah, at that point, I wouldn't even give that to my dog. I respect my dog too much.
What's more offensive, eating a really well done steak or putting ketchup on a steak? Yeah, they're both equally offensive.
They're pretty bad.
Yes.
You only use ketchup if you're mixing that steak with like a stir fry or something else. Like if you're adding like a spice or something. Like I usually eat steak with rice and I mix it up with like vegetables and whatnot. I don't need to throw ketchup on.
I'll do ketchup with like corned beef. That's actually pretty tasty. But on a steak.
You're doing like a steak burger.
People do that. Okay, that's
ketchup.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Yeah.
If you call it a burger, yeah, I'll be okay with putting ketchup on it. But just a steak, that's heresy. That's communism. That's the new Red Scare.
Well, like the red meat scare, if you will. Like Donut Lord says, a well-done steak with ketchup is offensive to the cow. Yes, folks, if you do that to a steak, that cow has died in vain, and you should feel bad about yourself.
Yeah, your decisions are bad, and you should feel bad.
There's but there's the good sandwiches like steak on focaccia bread or Philly cheesesteak. Like those are all like those things you can throw in other stuff if you want to, but you don't want to like drench it in ketchup. Like that's just gonna kill the meat flavor.
That's heinous.
I'm all about nothing on the steak. If it's done the right way, it doesn't even need salt. So that's what we're gonna do, folks. When we close out Wokebusters in a few months, weeks, we're gonna celebrate with some big steaks. Now, folks, I'm very excited. I've been talking about Wokebusters for years. I've been working on it for years. It's done. The trailer, we're going to show it tonight. Now, I want to give you guys an announcement. We will have the Kickstarter ready tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, the reason it's not live right this second is I had an idea for an extra tier, and it's something that a couple people have recommended and a couple people have asked for. So I just wanted to make sure that everything was done. Now, you can go to the landing page and sign up for the email. I believe you can even watch the trailer there now. But this book is done. It is more well done than a steak you shouldn't touch. It is perfect and ready to go. And so, folks, I'm excited. Joseph Bianowicz has been dropping the link. Thank you, Joseph Bianowicz.
Yeah, guys, make sure you sign up for the Kickstarter launch on there.
Yes. Now, it's going to be a 60-day campaign. I'm going to be appearing on other channels. We're going to have crossovers. There's more than just the one trailer. There's commercials. There's radio spots. I commissioned the song. I did it all. Wokebusters has everything covered. If the Ghostbusters have it, the Wokebusters have it. And ours is a little cooler by today's standards. Now, I don't mean that we're cooler than the Ghostbusters. I mean we're cooler than Phoebe and the other ones. But the Wokebusters will be here to talk about that each and every week. So, folks, we are going to be talking about a couple things tonight beyond the Wokebusters trailer because we want to give you guys an excellent show to entertain each and every one of you out there. First off, we're going to be talking about the Furiosa Fumble. Now, today in the video that I released, the scripted video that you guys are liking, I give all the reasons that I thought for Furiosa failing at the box office. We're going to talk about that and a whole lot more. I want to hear everyone's perspective in the audience. So, folks, hit the thumbs up button and start commenting. We're ready to listen. Also, we're going to be talking about Kotaku Detected. Apparently, there's a whole extra layer of controversy. A couple weeks ago, when I was on Side Scrollers, we were talking about one of the lists that a guy had made on Steam, and now somebody else made a list on Kotaku, and it's getting crazy. So we thought we'd bring that to you as well, since it affects all of us. And then finally, you're talking about our YouTube troubles. Real at the end of the show, or I can tell us when we get maximum people here. I talked to YouTube today. I figured out a couple things, and I got a way for us to grow even greater. But I need your help. That is it. So, folks, we would not be here if it wasn't for you guys. So we're going to check in with you guys already to have some fun, because our friend Shrebbles08 is here with the word of the day. The word of the day is Fartlek. Fartlek, the Mad Max stories. Wokebusters, that's the sequel. The Day the Fartlek Died, and My Black Ass presents Dion Green, not another Fartlek movie, starring Mel Gibson as the Mel. Yeah, sign me up for any of My Black Ass.
Honey, we fartlicked ourselves.
The Fartlek guy.
The Fartlek
Oh, like the
movie.
Fall
We're
Guy?
talking about
Yeah.
current movies in theaters that did not perform well.
Which
17
is sad,
days.
because I've heard that's actually fun by a lot of people. I know, Jeff, I think you said if I remember correctly, you said it was eh. But I've heard a lot of people say
But
that it was actually a fun film.
I would still describe it as a fun experience, even though I didn't personally think it was very good or super great in terms of like what it was trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
I still like, if you watch it on VOD, like on Netflix, I'd highly recommend you watch it on Netflix. I think you'd personally laugh at it. And the Miami Vice joke, Chef's Kiss, it was really hard not to be like singing Miami Vice praises on that movie, because that's my favorite show next to the Twilight Zone. But 17 days is a new lap record, and I guess the Fartlek guy is the perfect way to describe said film.
Yeah, I mean, it's still staying in theaters, but it is now available on video on demand. Or
Yeah, that's the
streaming
thing, and that's something I think we'll get into that discussion a little bit later when we start talking about Furiosa, in how like films are like really underperforming to what we honestly think they should in a lot of cases. Part of that, I think, being because, and not always, not in all cases, obviously, but part of that, I think, is because of this like knee-jerk, like premature ejaculative push for these movies to get onto the streaming and the video on demand type platforms. But I don't want to jump into that right away. But yeah, I think that was a pretty good one, Script.
By the way, sorry, I don't mean to cut in, but I was reading the chat real quick. To Adam and everyone out there, like I have said before, if you back Wokebusters on Indiegogo, what you have is a first edition copy that will have a limited numbered certificate of authenticity in the book, and it will be signed by me. Everybody that backed it originally will get their book. This is to spread awareness, grow it, take it to the next level, do more with it. I'll tell you guys more, and if you have any questions, you can ask me directly. There will be weekly updates on the campaign, and that will go for everybody. If you have wondered about the Indiegogo stuff, I've been making updates here on the channel, and I will make more updates all the time. But I have your information. You guys will receive everything because you already received your shirts, your slime, your bonus postcards with these little pins that I sent out to everybody as an update, and anything else. So there you go. And if you have any more questions, you can always contact me directly. I am very happy to answer any questions because, just to clear up any confusion. So there we go right here from Steven. World-class fartlicks. There we go. Thank you.
Oh, man.
Thank you.
Oh, man.
Man, by the way,
Fartlick Combat.
Ooh, would you play that game?
How many beers?
That's fair. There's this game on Sega Saturn where it's a fighting game, and like a man in a kilt lifts up his kilt and like a fireball shoots out. I feel like that would be a Fartlek move in Fartlek Combat. So
I think you are correct. That would absolutely be in there. That would absolutely be.
Now, before we jump into tonight's topic, we want to thank our friend Xavier to God for sending this one. Is it true that Spider-Man, Wolverine, and the Hulk are Marvel's Trinity? And do you prefer them over Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman? Now, let's break down that question first. We'll do do you consider them the Trinity? Andrew, is this the Trinity at Marvel?
I'm trying to, honestly, that's a hard question to ask because I personally have never been a big fan of the Hulk. And there have been pockets of time, and this is one of those important qualifiers. There have been pockets of time where the Hulk was insanely popular in terms of his comic book run, where he was popular than a lot of the more, I guess we would call them mainstream characters now. And this has happened with a lot of DC and Marvel's pantheon over the decades, where they'll kind of like shift and move. Sometimes they'll be more popular than other characters and yada yada. Spidey's always been up there, at least for the longest time. Wolverine, here's the thing. Wolverine has been a popular character for a very long time. He was never the focal point of the X-Men. For the longest time. Like that's recent in terms of like, if you put it in comparison and in the scope of like comic book history and how long the X-Men have been around, to consider Wolverine being the guy, that's like recent comparatively. It's been a couple of decades now, but comparative to the X-Men's history, that's recent. And I like Wolverine well enough. I don't know if I would consider him like maybe in the 90s. So, okay, if I want to take a cross section of Marvel's history, but just take the 90s, then Spidey, Wolverine, and I guess there was a slice where Hulk would have slotted in there as well. But would I prefer them over Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman? No, the only one of those characters that I put up there in that same tier is Spidey.
Script, what about you, sir?
Well, I mean, Marvel's got a slew of characters. I think almost more than DC does when you try to kind of actually tabulate them all. But I would say because they have so many more, it's hard to actually define a proper trinity. Technically speaking, if you were to speak to like classic Marvel editorial, that trinity would have been Iron Man, Thor, and Captain America, technically, and then Spider-Man would be on their own, as would Hulk. And I think that's kind of fair as a comparison.
I agree with both of you guys about how it's about a time period, because I would say Spider-Man is always in the Trinity. You can go back, I believe it's 67 is when it takes over the Fantastic Four in terms of sales, and Spider-Man may not always be their top book, but outside of the late 80s, when right before Todd McFarlane took over, Spider-Man has always been one of their top selling books, and he is their flagship character. But the Hulk was really popular from the TV show in the 70s through the 90s. And I know the books, people might not like every 90s Hulk book, but like the merchandise of Marvel was always Spider-Man and Hulk in the like before X-Men's big push post Jim Lee and the cartoons that took off. There's that window of time where Marvel is not DC level of popularity, and they got Spider-Man and they got Hulk, and that's kind of it. Every one of their characters is lower tier. Now, if we're doing the whole scale of everything Xavier to God, I'll put Spidey. I'd go with Iron Man, not just because of the movies being popular, but he has become the Marvel character for an entire generation of people. And while we may not like the MCU the way it is now, I think it would be silly to try to discredit Iron Man's importance and now legacy. Like, Iron Man is a forever character thanks to the movie, and there are very few Marvel characters overall that are bigger. And I'd say the third one to close it out, we're just going popularity currently. Guess I'd throw Deadpool in there for a current top 3, but not overall. But he is so popular. And I think I don't like the character, but Deadpool is so popular that he is like, he moves the needle. He gets the normies talking. And I mean, I don't like him, but damn it, it's hard to deny that he's popular.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
Now, this is going to be a fun one to read and transition to. First off, shout out to everybody joining us tonight. We appreciate you guys being here. Hit that thumbs up button for us. Now, WDW Pro, according to TLJ Screwjob, WDW Pro just made a video about how, due to things like the Fall Guy and Furiosa, he thinks a third of movie theaters might close in 2025. Do media companies not care? Well, before I can answer anything about the media companies or anything like that, first off, let me say to Xavier to God, I prefer the Marvel Trinity over DC. And I wanted to throw it up to you, Script Doctor, as someone who has a good knowledge of entertainment. What do you think about this prediction? And do you think that timetable is possible?
Yes, because we have an oversaturation of theaters given the amount of competition there is for people's attention. Your multiplexes with that can have anywhere from like 10 to 30 theaters in a building. What are you going to put in there? And it's expensive to put stuff in there, and also people don't want to go. One of the things that has been a very difficult aspect for Hollywood to grasp is that people are more interested in convenience than they are anything else. And if it's not convenient for them to go to the theater, then they're not going to make the effort, because
that's why you see movie theaters that are attached and inside malls do pretty well still,
they've been
because
inside
that's
malls
convenient.
since the 60s at least.
Yeah. No, but I'm saying is that speaks to your point, the convenience factor. People are already there at the mall doing other stuff. Oh, let's go see a movie. It's right here. Right. They don't have to go across town or whatever.
Especially if you've got the mall with like the hairdresser or salon in there, and like someone's gonna be a while. So it's like, oh, let's go see a movie while we're waiting for them.
You go do whatever it is you gotta do. I'm gonna go check out this.
Yeah. So I think that's the case. Do I think there'll be a third of the theaters? That's charitable. Probably be more.
More.
Wow.
Could be.
More.
Again,
you think more than a third?
Well, think of it this way. The New York theater scene, like stage theater, was huge before Hollywood came around. It became the highbrow entertainment of its time. And then movies started happening. And then they exploded. And they're considered more average and lowbrow. And classic stage theaters ended up being shuttered to the point where it was limited to Broadway and then the off-Broadway stuff. And you had very micro theaters. Like if you want to go to a dense city throughout North America and even Europe, where are you going to find a massive row of theaters to go see shows? They're scarce. There's maybe 2 or 3 at best on a block in a dense city of population between 3 million and 12 million. So they're rarity. There's a possibility that movie theaters will be the same thing, because people are finding other things to do with their time that is nowhere near as expensive.
Well, video games have taken over as the main source of entertainment for a lot of people.
Yeah, and you can do that at home. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to go to the arcade anymore. The arcade is antiquated these days.
Yeah. Not just that, you don't even have to go to a store to buy games anymore. Digital has taken over a lot of entertainment markets. There are very few markets in entertainment that remained a primarily physical media driven thing, comic books being one of them. Now the comic book industry itself is just down as a whole. However, physical is still, like, to say it's head and shoulders above digital is actually an understatement, because people that buy comic books don't care to scroll through them on their tablet. Like I had a Comixology account while that was still going. They ported that all over to Kindle and whatnot. I have a backlog of hundreds and hundreds of comic books on there, but they're all stuff that I already own physically. So that if I want to read it while I'm on the go, it's a little easier to just take my tablet or my phone and be like, yeah, I feel like rereading that issue right now, or rereading that graphic novel right now. And I can do that without having to haul all of these, right, and break my backs and whatnot. But video games, that's moved into digital heavily because the convenience factor. Movies are the same thing. And you have to really convince. You can have the coolest looking trailer in the world, but that has to not only just be a cool looking trailer, that has to convince people to leave their homes and spend money on it at a theater. That theater might be 5 minutes away, like my local AMC is, or maybe their closest one is closer to 30 minutes away, depending on where they live in the nation. You have to convince people to go through several steps in some cases to go see your film. And in a lot of cases, a lot of these movies just aren't doing that. They're not convincing people to do that. We're seeing that happen fewer and fewer times year over year. Honestly, I am so thankful as a Godzilla fan that Godzilla X Kong performed so well, and that people were just continually going to the theater, like right up until it basically left theaters, where you were getting reported numbers of like, hey, now it's left this amount of theaters over the past week over week, right? And it still made this amount of money. This amount of people were still going to see it. That's because that was a movie that enough people were convinced to leave their homes to go see. That's not happening often enough. Marvel's certainly not doing it. Lucasfilm's not doing it. DC hasn't been doing it. We see this because their movies are failing abysmally. And then you have a lot of these other films that look like, hey, like that looks like a really cool trailer. Like, I'll be honest, I have seen the original Mad Max one time forever ago, and that was it. I didn't see Fury Road. I saw the Furiosa trailer and was like, that looks kind of cool. I like Chris Hemsworth. I like Taylor Joy. I might check that out. And I just haven't found the time to do it. And that's the thing. If I wanted to see it enough, I would have made the time. And not enough movies are doing that for enough people. People are like, I'll just wait for it to hit HBO Max or for it to hit Netflix or for it to hit Amazon or whatever. And then on top of that, these studios aren't taking into account that the convenience thing is not only a self-made problem. This is a problem that they created by, one, having lackluster content, and two, by being so quick on the draw to push these things to digital streaming platforms where people don't even have to buy the film. They just watch it because it's already on the thing they're already paying for. I don't know what to tell these people. Like, you guys have to take that kind of a thing into account. And on top of that, get your budgets under control. A lot of these films have just incredibly overblown budgets. And it's like, okay, so if you, and it's two things, right? You got to take into account, okay, you created this problem that a lot of people are expecting your stuff to show up on streaming platforms, and 9 out of 10 times it is going to do so very quickly, very shortly after it starts its theatrical run. It's like, 2 months later, oh shoot, it's already on Amazon or wherever, right? So if you're taking that into account, you're utilizing that information, then you should be saying, okay, we should probably be trying to spend less on these films so that we have a greater chance of success with making money back on net when this thing's in theaters. Right? Because you're shooting yourself in the foot. You have a film that's got $150 million budget, pre-marketing, and you toss it into theaters and you already plan on putting it onto Netflix or HBO Max a month and a half later. I don't know how you're expecting to make that money back like that. Most movies aren't going to make that much money that quickly, let alone enough that takes into account the marketing and then the cut for the theaters and all that.
Well, dude, I'm agreeing with you guys on the points. On top of that is somebody who sees a lot of movies that I don't necessarily want to see for the channel just so we can talk about it, so we can be a part of the conversation. I love Mad Max. I love The Road Warrior. Thunderdome's Thunderdome. It's what it is. I kind of laugh at it.
It's a movie.
But I own Fury Road on DVD. I saw that shit opening night. I was really into it then. I haven't watched it in almost 10 years. I believe my Fury Road disc is still in the wrapper. Just putting that out there. I enjoyed the movie. I enjoy Mad Max. But I had no interest in this film for a few reasons, which I put in the video. And some of those are based on other people too. Check out the video for the full context. For me, though, a movie like this should be seen on a big screen, but also a movie like this doesn't need to exist. I am really tired, and I will take a personal stand against any of these branded in-universe spin-offs. I don't want any of them. I need Hollywood to understand that a lot of us out there have an attachment to a main character. This franchise idea, this multiverse crap.
Everything's a franchise now.
That is a problem for me. Like me, I love Axel Foley. If you made a spin-off of Taggart and Rosewood, I wouldn't watch it because I'm into the thing for the main character. Now, all the parts are important and integral to the quality of the film, but it's like a Lego set. And we have a lot of Lego collectors out there. If you guys put, section 121 before section 148, you're going to get a funky looking Millennium Falcon. It kind of looks like the Millennium Falcon, but everyone's going to know it's off. That's how I feel like a lot of these movies are. You're trying to take the brand name that's recognizable, and then you're trying to slap on whatever you want to put on it because you think it's hot. And you don't realize that these old franchises are very specific, and Mad Max isn't as big as people think. Now, some people want to say it's obscure, it's this, it's that. I wouldn't call it an obscure franchise. I'd call it a relic, but a classic. Like Blade Runner. Mad Max lives in this window where if you know, you know. And a lot of people know. But modern day audiences know the new version or just aren't aware because they're so inundated with garbage. And this is what happens when we have a pop culture society that is so cyclical on the same period of time, because things that come before that window of time, they don't really recognize it. But studios think, well, this is a popular IP, so we're going to milk it. They don't realize that the majority of people, besides everything that you said, I would put that actually first. Your average younger audience has no connection to Mad Max, even if
No,
you
they
were
don't.
alive.
Same
for
with Blade
Fury
Runner.
Road. Same with Blade Runner. Same with anything of the 80s that's not Star Wars. Even Star Wars, honestly.
Even Star Wars now. Even Star Wars now.
The only franchise that is safe is Back to the Future. Until the Bobs pass away, Back to the Future is kind of a safe thing. And that's the perfect franchise. I think, but like as Galf says in the chat, it's more of a cult classic and it's also a genre leader. Does the classic apocalyptic landscape wasteland resonate the way it used to, or have we evolved that trope into something newer that maybe wouldn't blend with Mad Max?
I don't actually know if I have a good answer to that question. What about you, Script?
Nope, I can't come up with an answer right now. I have
Well,
to
I think that's
that.
what Hollywood didn't map out. They didn't really take into account. Like, I get it. George Miller's passionate about his project, and I respect George Miller as a filmmaker. I haven't seen Furiosa. Really wasn't interested, so I'm not commenting on that film. But I've seen his other work, including Babe, and I like George Miller enough. Actually, I wish his Justice League film would have been made instead of what we got, because I think it would have been a much more interesting landscape. Mm-hmm. But really, to go off of that message and to continue what we're talking about, I don't disagree that theaters are going to go away. I haven't really thought about a number, but I've been getting reports about Furiosa. People aren't really showing up. Nick saw it. He said there were about 20 people in this theater, and a couple people were snoring. I've seen a lot of people give me reports that there are 6 to 10 people in their theaters. I don't take any joy in the movie failing. I don't believe it's because of only, modern wokeness. I do feel that a lot of audiences that would go blindly support a Mad Max film have been turned off by the way things have been discussed overall across the landscape of entertainment, to the point where they're just done. Everything we've talked about, I do believe, adds to that. But I think that's like a comma, and then you have to add this, people have been conditioned to stay away from this crap. After you're told so many times, this isn't for you, this isn't for you, well, then what is for you? And a lot of people... Go ahead.
That's a good point, and it's actually something that I was thinking about earlier this afternoon. Because people who are familiar with the franchise know Furiosa is a badass female character, right? This isn't news. This isn't something that the wokies just invented out of thin air, right? In 2023 or 2024, that this is some brand new thing they pulled out of their collective assholes. She was already a character, right? And an interesting enough character to where, like, okay, yeah, like seeing a little bit more of her isn't something people necessarily would have been against. However, you have to look at the landscape. You have to look at things in context. To your point, Jeff, we have just spent like the last decade, nearly at this point, being told that films are not made for us anymore as fans when they shove this female protagonist, the strong whammon protagonist that is written abysmally, right? So there's nothing about the character that endears us to them. This isn't me talking specifically about Furiosa, because again, I have not seen the movie. I can't speak on it with any level of intellectual honesty, but I'm just speaking in general terms. We see this happen with all of these other franchises, right? Or just like individual films, like there's a singular film. It's about a female protagonist and she's just like the best thing ever, right? And she does all of these things. Like, well, okay, like you could sell me on that if you gave me any reason to care about this character whatsoever. If you gave me any reason to think that she's like a likable person in some way, shape, or form. And they're just not doing that. And so now you have conditioned your usual movie-going audience, especially those of us who are big fans of action films. Action films are my genre. That's my favorite to go see in theaters because I like the spectacle. I like getting to enjoy something that the big silver screen truly does enhance. And a well-done action film, there's nothing else like it when it comes to the difference between watching it at home, and no matter how big your TV is, and watching it on a big silver screen. I'm not even talking about IMAX. But you've conditioned your audience now to be like, oh, it's another female protagonist. That's probably going to be crap. It's probably going to hate on men, blah, 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 blah. Yep. Whether that ends up being true or not, and there are many cases where it is not the case. However, you spent too much time and energy convincing people to believe that it would be.
Exactly. And that it's like the Joker. You get what you deserve. The audience didn't necessarily create the landscape. The marketing did. And the marketing got you here. And ultimately, it's a formula that has many parts of the equation, excuse me. But like it's all of these things. And now it's too late really to get people back. I don't want movies to die. I'm passionate about filmmaking just as much as I am comics, not necessarily being on set or doing stuff like that, but I love movies because movies are a shared experience that we can have a good time watching ourselves and then talk to people. My buddy came over over the weekend. We watched Wayne's World. We geeked out for like Wayne's World 2 came on afterwards. We had so much fun. Me and that friend also like Beetlejuice. We'll randomly quote shit. We'll talk about the trailer. Movies bring people together. And I understand that a digital movie is still a digital movie.
Yeah.
But there's something about going into a theater with 200 strangers and having that and going out like a good movie, not like garbage, but like Avengers. I keep harping on it 12 years later, man.
Because that experience was unprecedented and there's never been anything like it since.
I've never been to a movie where I lost so many lines of dialogue to justified laughter or cheering. Like when the Hulk smashed Loki, I didn't know he said puny God until I went back and saw it a second time.
I had to go back and see it the next day because I saw the midnight release and everybody was just losing their skulls throughout so much of that film. And that kind of energy, like whether you like Joss Whedon or not, I don't really give a shit. Like he's got plenty of problems as it is, but that movie, the experience, the collective, like you were saying, Jeff, the collective experience as an audience with that, nothing had been like that in our lifetime. And certainly nothing has been since. Like not even Endgame. Like Endgame had some good pops. Like when everybody starts showing up right there at the end, everybody like that was a telegraphed cheer moment, right? Like everyone's like, like 3, 2, 1.
Picking up Thor's hammer was the big explosion moment.
That
like
too.
Everybody went
that too, and that was me like, oh look, nobody in here has read comics. But that was fun anyway.
You knew it was going to happen. It was cathartic to see.
Oh, it's not like it didn't feel good. Yeah, it felt great to see. It was like, oh yeah, I was there for it. But it was still it paled in comparison to just the opening credits to ending credits that was Avengers Assemble.
And another thing too, like I understand how people feel about modern day Marvel. And I hope that when we talk about that emotional high, that you realize that we don't feel that at all. And we're also disappointed by that lack. I want to also put this out there. Like, I think people expect us to retroactively hate all the past experiences. Marvel's a bad brand at this point, but in the past,
I'm not about that.
So much fun with those movies. Those were this big unifying thing, and now that that's over, because let's be honest too, those movies reached their natural conclusion with the big payoff. It won. Everybody got what they want. I know I'm in the minority. I don't like Endgame. I don't think it's a good movie. Like I rewatched it the other week.
No, it loses its luster on repeat viewings very quickly. There are a lot of problems.
Say that again.
The original Avengers is not much of a story either. It's basically an hour to hour 20 minutes of them just getting the team together while Loki just walks around the planet unobstructed with a very convoluted interrogation between him and Black Widow, all to have a set piece on the helicarrier, followed by Stark Tower and the big beam in space with the army that magically deactivates once you throw a nuke back in there. It's a very basic, poor story, but the reason it works so well is you've got all the movies that led up to it that have built up the foundation, carrying the goodwill, and then you have the easiest thing to shoot in the world, which is the Avengers Assemble scene, that 360 that they did.
Yeah,
and that's the only reason that movie was successful, because if you take a look at it on its merits, it's an objectively poor team up film because all the characters are passive; they're not actually active as much. And the goal of the villain is completely ambiguous. Like, how is starting grounds of New York going to lead to any sort of global destruction? And where is everybody else in this movie? Like, it's very, very abstract and vague and unspecific. But I'll put it to you this way. It is an example of how well you do those characters and how well you capture them that makes it a multi-billion-dollar film, because the same type of effort was not put in with Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, where you actually have for the very first time on screen the holy trinity of DC, and it doesn't even break $1 billion, and it should have by just that metric alone. But there's such a bad taste and flavor of those executed films that nobody was willing to go back and see it again. The taste and flavor of the early MCU was beautiful. It was addictive. It was nurturing. You felt satisfied with it to the point where even if you got an empty meal like Avengers, there was enough flavor to it where you're like, you know what? This is fine. This is the best that you could have hoped for given the circumstances.
Oh, dude. And I'm going to sound like a vapid film goer, but the fact that the last almost hour is just nonstop like action, and I get it. You're talking about the story. I feel similar about certain things, but a movie for me to have that experience, and this is just personal. This isn't one I would put into a video, but you talked about the ticking clock and a couple of things in the Avengers. The Avengers makes me feel kind of like I feel when I watch Star Wars or Back to the Future. When Marty's racing down the street trying to get to the wire, when Iron Man's flying up into the spaceship, like all of those things, like it gets me going. To me, it is structured. Realistically, the opening's fine. Actually, no, it's the opening that I don't love. The whole Loki escaping, the underground thing and all that. It's fine. It's a paramilitary thing. It's a much different Marvel than what we get later on. And I'm okay with that. And maybe, to be fair, too, I'm giving it a pass because it stuck the landing on something that had never really been done before. And at the end of it, like, I left happy and I left wanting more. I never
the balance for the movie characters.
But say that again. I'm sorry.
The balance for the on-screen balance for all the characters of the Avengers was actually like the best part of that film. Everybody got their moment to shine and have their say, and that was great. But I mean, you just take a step back from it because it's got a TV aspect to it, because Joss Whedon is a TV writer who wishes he could be a feature film writer. And you take a look at it, it's like, okay, Loki has the staff. He opens the portal. The Chitauri come in. Okay, what's his end goal here? Is he going to rule Earth? Because it doesn't look like he's got any plans to really do that. I mean, you don't start with such a small force when you're doing an invasion. You go planet wide. You go literally Independence Day, and that's not what we got here. And instead, we just get, he's attacking New York. Wow, it's really localized. Hey, isn't it kind of strange how S.H.I.E.L.D. has a nuclear weapon that can actually do more damage to New York than this T'Chari army can? So who's the real enemy? Like, it's got a whole bunch of things that just don't know what it wants to do or what it wants to be. But what makes you kind of forget that is how fun the characters are dealing with those situations.
But two things
real
Jeff. Quick. The S.H.I.E.L.D. stuff kind of gets addressed later on in the next Captain America movie. When you see that council, they're actually kind of nefarious, and it makes you question, well, was that a Hydra plot underneath it all? Because they're
But that's a crutch maneuver, because that means you need another film to make an explanation of what's going on with that plot point, and that is
okay. But I'm going to interject here, because that's not something the vast majority of the audience gave a shit about. Here's the thing. It does matter. It matters because the movie was really successful and audiences loved it. In terms of something being successful and audiences having fun with the film, that is your measure. That is what you should actually care about. Yes, we want something to be a coherent story. We want this, we want that, we want good story structure. But at the end of the day, if you can't convince your audience of the things that truly matter to them, of having a good time, having fun, and coming away laughing, having amazing experience with their friends, their family, whoever the hell they went and saw the film with, none of that other shit matters. You could have the most objectively don't interrupt me, please. On paper, you could have the most well-structured story in the world, and people could not give half a shit. But if something is fun, and they went there and they went with their family, they went with their friends, they had an amazing experience, and they wanted to come back multiple times to the theaters, they wanted to pick it up on Blu-ray, and every single time they watch that film, regardless of the other things, they may even be cognizant of that other stuff. And they'd be like, yeah, okay, yeah, like if I really want to nitpick and really get into the nitty-gritty, get into the weeds, yeah, okay, that doesn't really work. But at the end of the day, do I care? No, I had fun. And that's why those movies were great.
This is how we got into the position that Marvel
No,
has right
no,
now.
no, it's not.
Yes,
Marvel
it is.
got into this position because they stopped giving a shit at all.
Well,
Look.
no, because they started not giving a crap with the Avengers stuff. Because take a look at what the metric that you're using.
The metric I'm using is the things that the audience cared about. They're paying audience.
Yes. So take a look at the Transformers franchise. The main audience cared about those first few films until they realized they're all the same. And then the audience started getting cut in half and half with every subsequent release. Geez, we have the same type of pattern happening with Marvel right now because they're not actually worried about the quality. They're just worried about trying to make you have a good time for that brief 2-hour period, as opposed to doing something that is, say, for instance, like Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back, which holds up decades after watch. It does the fun, and it also has the structure.
Now, I agree with that. You guys know how passionate I am over the first Star Wars movie in terms of its reach and appeal and everything. And we're going to talk about all this and continue this in a moment. But our friend Adama sends in a Scott Steiner button.
Ooh,
and
nice.
You know what happens, folks, when we go and receive a Scott Steiner super chat. Class is in session.
You know, they say all men are created equal, but you look at me and you look at Small Joe, and you can see that statement is not true. See, normally if you go one-on-one with another wrestler, you got a 50-50 chance of winning. But I'm a genetic freak, and I'm not normal. So you got a 25% at best at beating me. And then you add Kurt Angle to the mix, your chances of winning drastically go down. See, the three-way at sacrifice, you got a 33 1/3 chance of winning. But I got a 66 2/3 chance of winning because Kurt Angle knows he can't beat me, and he's not even going to try. So, Samoa Joe, you take your 33 1/3 chance minus my 25% chance, and you got an 8 1/3 chance of winning at sacrifice. But then you take my 75% chance of winning, if we used to go one-on-one, and then add 66 2/3%, I got 141 2/3 chance of winning at sacrifice. See, Joe, the numbers don't lie, and they spell disaster for you at sacrifice.
Second best clip on the channel.
Yeah.
Love it
What's
every
your
time.
favorite?
Oh, Captain Marvel getting punched out of Endgame.
I'll get you played that in a little bit. Don't worry, buddy. Adama, thank you very much for your very, very, very generous super chat. He says, I'm old school. I love the physical media aspect of video games and movies. I love going to a vintage arcade or playing a game with a buddy right next to me, like GoldenEye or Tony Hawk Pro Skater. The thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. Adama, we got to hang out because you just listed my 2 favorite video games. To this day, I still play GoldenEye. To this day, I still play Tony Hawk. And then, if I may say so myself, I'm pretty damn good at those 2 games. Throw on a wrestling game and a little bit of Rock Band. I could be a pro gamer, maybe one day.
For me, man, like nothing beats like the old N64 and even GameCube days of games like Super Smash Brothers and Mario Party, and like just at reaching that point with your buddies on the couch where you say F it and you start like unplugging people's controllers because of bullshit. And like that was, man, those were the days that those will never be replicated again. And that's sad. That's a loss.
It is. Now, I'm in the weird minority when I say it like this, but I think I like both for gaming. I have GoldenEye physically on the N64. I also have it digitally on my Xbox and digitally on my Switch. I don't have my N64 hooked up. I don't have access to it currently, but I do have the digital versions. Now, I don't think physical games, physical media, anything should go away. I'm a proponent. I will fight for physical media. I do like the convenience factor of having it digitally, but I also like to have the security of knowing it's going to stick around. I can't tell you how many times I get into a Game Pass game and it goes Just Cause 4. I was really into that game because I recently hooked up my TV again. I've been getting into the gaming, getting ready to do some stuff for the channel on Twitch, and I was really playing Just Cause to get a feel for it, and it's gone. And I'm like, oh man, I liked that one. But that's how Game Pass works.
Yeah, that's their hook. They're like, you want to keep playing, you got to buy it now.
But Adama, Tony Hawk, I do play that one digitally. I have the newest Tony Hawk, Pro Skater 1 and 2, 4K remaster, or whatever it's called.
Oh, yeah, the remaster they did of 1 and 2, yeah. Oh, man.
Awesome,
I'm hearing Goldfinger in my head right now. Superman.
I am a Dead Kennedys guy in general. That was my first punk rock band, and I really got into them way too much in high school and college. And I got into them because of Tony Hawk. I used to play Police Truck and skate around, and then you get to Tony Hawk 2, and they have other songs where you're skating around, and then the third one, Ace of Spades, skating around. Like, I was too big of a kid to skateboard, and I don't mean like weight. I mean my feet are a size 15, and like my feet hung off the skateboard as a kid, and I couldn't get the balance, and I still really can't fit my foot on a skateboard safely. So I just didn't do it. I just gave up. So I just did it digitally, and Tony Hawk helped me like live a fantasy. I know that's a weird thing to say, but when I was a kid, I wanted to be a skateboard guy. I thought they were the coolest things on the planet.
You wanted to be a skater boy?
Not that lame. I was out of it by the time Avril Lavigne rolled around, but I was more like, I loved Jackass and those stupid CKY videos and all that stuff. Like, I was into all that. I had the fingerboards. I played with Tech Decks and little
the Tech Decks, yeah.
I was that age, man. And so
I remember those. Oh my gosh.
And so because I couldn't do the real thing, I got good at the digital one. And folks, if you want to watch us, go to
the digital one.
The digital one.
Yeah,
check us out over on Twitch Gaming. Because
real quick, this is actually semi-related. I was scrolling through YouTube. I think it was yesterday, and I came across a YouTube short. And it was Avril Lavigne doing Skater Boy, and like Tony Hawk was there, and I was like, that's kind of cool, actually. I was like, all right, that's righteous.
Dude, I was so pumped. Quick shout out to Layden Swallow, who's working and lurking. We see you out there, folks. I was so pumped when Tony Hawk was the ambassador at the Olympics when they introduced skateboarding, because I was like, dude, it's the guy. Like, I understand skateboarding's been around before Tony Hawk, but Tony Hawk's the Michael Jordan of skateboarding. Tony Hawk is every big athlete of skateboarding rolled into one. And it's cool that one, he's still around, two, he's still skateboarding, and three, he kind of gets the praise he deserves. He's beyond a video game. He really did bring skateboarding as a culture more mainstream. Yes, with his video games, but yeah, with other stuff too. So I'm a big Tony Hawk fan. That's
even before the games, yeah.
Oh my god, dude. I had every one of them. Every Tony Hawk game. By the way, AJ Journeyman says the GoldenEye soundtrack is better than the game GoldenEye soundtrack. I don't disagree. The GoldenEye movie score is okay at times, but the game, each track is based on a specific Bond score. So, for example, the Dam at the beginning of GoldenEye is based on the Honor Majesty's Secret Service note. It's like a small, I guess it's called like a leitmotif or whatever, but it's like a small series of notes that plays only in that movie, and then they loop it and turn it into the Dam music. The music from The Faculty is a mix of the movie music and the GoldenEye music, or Goldfinger theme, because it uses like a series specific notes that is from that. Yes, I know that about GoldenEye. Like, I'm like a step away from like trying to buy a computer that built it or something. Okay, that's my shit.
Yeah, dude. That in retrospect, GoldenEye N64 should not have been as successful as it was, because mechanically that game is actually kind of a mess.
Hold on, though. You got to get
enough things right.
Created.
No, I do, but they got enough right that it hooked an entire generation. I was part of that generation. I played the crap out of that game, both campaign and freaking versus, the 4v4 free-for-all mode, like with friends, like almost every single day. The game, for me anyway, doesn't hold up well mechanically. That soundtrack I will remember for the rest of my life, to his point. Like, I can hear it playing in my head right now.
They did fix the game for modern audiences on Xbox, where they updated the controls, and it made it too easy, to be honest. Like, you can really, maybe it's just me, but like, you can win headshots from across because it had technology.
You're roboting out, bro.
Oh, yeah.
You're roboting out real bad for a second.
Storm in the area. Maybe that's lingering in your region.
Maybe. We had crazy storms this morning and late last night.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
you're
still he's still we're still losing him, I think, a little bit here. But yeah, to that point. Well, hello, Saskas. Hello. Hope you're doing fantastic. Congratulations to Jen and Sylvia on the success of this little book right here, Yaira,
Ooh.
the Rippaverse's 4th consecutive $1 million plus launch. Fantastic read. We had a real quick thing. We actually had a major power outage in this area, including our warehouse today, like all day. So we were not able to get out nearly as many orders as we wanted to. We still got out somewhere between 3,000, 3,500 orders because we had pre-packed quite a few.
Nice. That's still
So
pretty
yeah,
good. Yeah.
that is a credit to. I can't take any credit for that. That is okay. Jeff just texted me, said his internet dropped. He'll be right back. So I'll keep ripping. That is a credit to Brandon, our operations manager, and his whole warehouse team. They have kicked ass the entire last week, getting things pre-packed and ready to go. So shout out to them. Thank you to them, guys. Those of you who ordered Yaira, I cannot wait for you to get this book. This is my favorite book so far in our universe, and that's not just because Jen and Sylvia become very dear friends of mine. It's because it really is a fantastic book. They wrote their asses off. Deborah Carita drew her ass off, and it's a ton of fun. I can't wait for you to get that, and then I can't wait for you to get the next one. Mike Barron wrote our next book, guys. Mike Barron's been writing comic books since long before most of us were alive, myself included. I grew up reading Chuck Dixon's books before I read Mike Barron's books. So it's like, oh shoot, like this is the stuff that's coming out now as I'm a kid, Chuck Dixon stuff. It's like, oh, this is the older stuff. That's Mike Barron. Mike Barron inspired Chuck in a lot of ways. So I can't wait for you guys to get that. It's going to be a great time. And he wrote a killer book, and the artist for his book, Will Conrad, man, he is so good. So let's check in with the chat real quick. I don't have powers to highlight messages, so I'll just read what you guys are saying until Jeff gets back in here. Like I said, he just texted me saying that his internet dropped. I'll just tell him no
So
worries.
we're just gonna rip it on here.
Yeah, we're just gonna rip it on here and read the chat and check in with y'all.
Guys, you guys getting out that many books, even with the power down, is quite impressive. I think maybe you guys have to invest in like a generator or a Jenna Ripper. You know, it's just something in the back to plug in for your printing labels and things, right? You know,
that's
just
not a bad idea.
So at least, you know, when the power goes out and where you guys are in Texas, you are still able to maintain that customer service quality that you like to promote so well on your websites and videos. Absolutely. Yeah.
That's actually not a bad idea. I'm gonna put that idea forward tomorrow in our leadership meeting. Actually, like, hey, can we look into maybe a generator for the warehouse? I don't know what something like that would cost for a warehouse. This is not a small warehouse.
You don't have to do the whole warehouse. You just have to do it for whatever systems you need to print off labels and operate a couple of lights, right? Because you don't have to operate the whole thing. It's like, oh, we just need this corner for this part. Boom, shutter into that one part. You know, a simple generator, one, like with 3 gallon gas tank to pour in there, get a couple hours at it done so that you can all wind up, then seal up the place when till the power comes back, right? So
absolutely, that's a great idea, Script. Thank you. Actually, I'm gonna put that idea forward.
It's what we do on sets whenever our main source of power is out. We always go to the generator that we got in the truck.
That's a fantastic idea. In fact, I'm going to write that down in my notes right now because my short-term memory is garbage and I will forget. Welcome back.
Am
Jeff.
I back? Can you hear me again?
You are back.
We can hear you.
Back.
I know my camera.
You're a little fuzzy, but we can hear you.
Fuzzy, so.
Anyway, folks, thank you for your understanding with the technical difficulty. I've upgraded the internet. I'll call again and see what's up. But we're having some weird weather here in Cincinnati. We've had a lot of storms. Things have happened. It is what it is. But now that I'm back, no more excuses. So thank you to Adama for your super chat. And thanks for letting me trip memory lane. Folks, I've done it before. Maybe I'll do it again. I can beat Goldeneye in 45 minutes. Maybe try to beat that record and do it on Twitch for you guys. So just let me know if you want to watch that. Or see if I can hit a 1,000,000-point combo in Tony Hawk. I can get 1,000,000 points for a run, no problem. But a 1,000,000-point combo is usually harder to get. So
you can beat all of GoldenEye first level to last level in 45 minutes?
Yeah.
Damn.
I
sucked at that game then, I guess.
did it once, and I thought I was going to do it. You know why? Sorry, it dropped. I was pissed. You know why I'm so good at that game, though?
Why?
Okay, there we go. Because it gave me the one thing I wanted as a kid. I wanted to be James Bond, and it was that. It didn't need multiplayer. It didn't need anything. I wanted to play as James Bond, and it gave me that in the first person, and I thought it was cool. So that's it. That is why GoldenEye.
That's
is my
a good
favorite
reason
game.
as
It helped
any.
me become my favorite character. But
That's all the reason you
thank
need.
you to everybody who's dealing with Robo Jeff. Now, you guys were in an interesting conversation about the Avengers and such. Is there anything you guys would like to say in terms of the situation we're in with movie theaters? I'm personally burned by a lot of crap, and it's nothing to do with just the ideology or just the wokeness. It really is just a lot of bad selection too, and bad delivery. Of course, there's, but overall, I'm kind of disappointed.
Okay, well, I'll put it to. There's a number of factors.
what's
So
the
the first
internet?
one references to what George Lucas said at Cannes recently, which is actually something people are taking it out of context because he's thinking we're all interpreting it as he's talking about today's commentary on studio executives and things. He actually was talking about 1973 when he was actually just trying to get Star Wars off the ground because he was saying executives don't have imagination. They never have, they never will, and they never do. He needed to actually hire Ralph McQuarrie to do pictures of Star Wars so that people would get it because that was the only way they were able to understand what he was trying to achieve. That has been a truism of Hollywood since the days of George Lucas. It has not changed. In fact, that's one of the biggest obstacles we have is that we don't have that random person that can make the connection, as difficult as it is to make, almost like Jeff's internet connection right now, to the idea behind the director, the actor, the creative, the writer, producer, whatever, of what project they want to do. They never exist at the money decision level in Hollywood. You have to fight tooth and nail in order to get that money out of them in order to produce a product such as Star Wars or Apocalypse Now, E.T., Close Encounters, all those fantastic films of the late 70s that really kind of ushered in the 80s decade. It was not an easy process. It's still not an easy process. That thing has never changed. The thing that's kind of changing right now, or at least the thing that has to be dealt with, is the fact that we now have an oversaturated market. We also have a lot of people that they get in for various forms of nepotism, either children, relatives. Sometimes it's usually networking, greasing hands, scratching backs type of stuff as well. But there's no one really in there that has the audience, not audience in regards to the general audience. I'm talking the audience of the studios or the people that actually can get you financing. Getting that audience and getting them to actually agree to take a risk on something is very, very difficult because the economy of filmmaking today is vastly different than what it was in the 70s. In the 70s, you had more condensed and controlled budgets, and it was all about trying to maximize your profit with spending as little as possible. Now we have something that's very inverted, and that's kind of started with J.J. Abrams, where he would inflate the budget to take as much as he could up front with him and his production team, and to hell with what happens on the back end. It's not his problem anymore. He knows, and that's a reaction to the fact that there's been decades of terrible back end deals negotiated on films prior to it. So it's best to get as much money up front. JJ did that. Everyone in Hollywood was copying that model, especially on the Disney side of things. That's why all those Disney films are so expensive. The Fall Guy, which we just talked about, and Furiosa as well. There's no reason for them to be as expensive as they were to make, and yet they were, because they were adopting a bad model. And this bad model is what's going to actually hurt.
Fall Guy doesn't seem like a film that should have a crazy budget. Like, you should be able to do that with a very moderate budget.
30 to 50 million would be the normal budget you'd get for that type of film. But for some reason, it was over 100. And then the other aspect that's also kind of strange is the fact that we're not really focusing on the budgets itself. We're worried so much on the fact that we don't have micro budget films anymore. It's all about the fact that we have to have $50 to $100 million to make a single movie. And that doesn't work into the model where Hollywood has always been 90% of what they put out is garbage and 10% is what's good. Because every studio model, the way that their math is done is that they put out a slate of films, usually between 10 and 20, and they are betting that one of those films that they're going to release that year will pay for all the failures they have that year as well.
And it's so weird, that line of thinking is so strange, because you have films that do gangbusters. Obviously, you cannot use this as the bar necessarily, but you can use it as an example at the very least. The first Deadpool film, it's still got a lot of problems, but that film made a absolute metric ton of money off a $58 million budget, right?
Yeah.
So you can make a movie that makes a lot of money on net with a far more tempered budget. What was it? Godzilla -1. One of the best Godzilla movies that's ever been made. The CGI, with the exception of like maybe 1 or 2 scenes where it's like, okay, it's kind of showing its budget there just a little bit, but the movie's so good that I don't actually really care. And that movie did extremely well off a very like a pittance of a budget. Like, I don't understand this line of thinking that we have to just blow the bank accounts and the creditors out of the water when it comes to these budgets in order to make something that is going to be worthwhile, because we have precedents. It's not true. There are obviously some films that just by way of their very concept are going to require heavy CGI. Look at the MonsterVerse films. That's why it's very sparing with their usage of the Titans themselves. That's why Godzilla only has like 12 minutes of screen time rather than, him being in it for half of the film. But if people watch the old movies, he wasn't in it for half of the film then either. Because just the way things are, you're not going to have a guy in a suit anymore, right? But even when they had a guy in the suit, he wasn't in it for half the film, right? Like, he was in it for far less. He was in it for like 15, 20 minutes tops. So I think these studios, these development teams need to think far more practically. There are obviously, like I said, there are films where that's not going to be as applicable. You're not going to get a guy in a suit anymore when it comes to Godzilla. You're not going to, be able to do practical effects with certain things. But like, make it work where you can. Why is the knee jerk spending $1.5 billion, having to sacrifice 17 virgins and your firstborn child in order to get the CGI budget paid for? Why is that the knee jerk reaction? Why is that the default? Why is that the go-to?
Wall Street actually said that they did the math. They said that if you spend $100 million, you can make $1 billion at the box office. However, so this is a problem with math guys. They're not good at English, and they're not good at conveying their ideas properly, which is why they're actually so good at making money, because they confuse people. So when you say I've spent $100 million, if I spend $100 million and I can make $1 billion at the box office, Hollywood's going to assume, if we spend $100 million on one movie, that movie will make $1 billion. No, that's not what they're saying. They're saying if you spend $100 million over the course of a year on several movies, you can make $1 billion. Why? Because they're low budget. Your profit margin gain is smaller. So you actually have a better chance of making your money back. And if you do that, if you say did $10 million budget films and they're all really good, you have a chance of making $1 billion back total annually on that. But if you spend 10 $100 million movies on that, you're not going to make $1 billion on each and every one of them. You might be lucky to make $1 billion on one, in which case you're still out $900 million for the rest.
The MCU set actually, as much as I love and I laud the first 3 phases of the MCU, it set a dangerous precedent. I think we can all agree with that, where it set the bar as though movies need to be making close to or over $1 billion in order to be considered successful. They need to make over $1 billion if your budget is $380 million. But if you have a reasonable human style budget, you don't need to make that much for it to be a success. You just need to convince enough people to turn a really nice, tidy profit to then be able to turn that over into your next project. But going back to what we were saying earlier about the status currently of movie theaters and the struggle right now convincing audiences to pay money to leave their houses and go get lunch maybe near the theater and then pay for their tickets, and shoot, thoughts and prayers, if you have more than 2 people total going there, then you're going to spend an arm and a leg, and you're going to have to take out a second mortgage, especially if you're going to get a popcorn that's larger than a small. $50
for the Star Wars popcorn bucket.
Dude, I forget how much I paid when I went and saw the early showing, so the Thursday evening showing of Godzilla X Kong, and I was like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. So I got the big, AMC exclusive collector's edition popcorn bucket.
The $30 bucket?
Yeah, that's got like half of it themed after Goji, half of it themed after Kong, and I got the special edition cup and everything that's got the Godzilla little figure on top. And I was jazzed for it. It was totally worth the expense. Absolutely worth the expense. I would do it again in a heartbeat. But that's because I had a ton of fun with the movie. But it's super hard to convince people, as we've seen, because of the state of theaters and the low performance of a lot of films these days. It's super difficult to convince people to spend even remotely close to that, especially if you're going as a family. Like if you're just a single person going, okay, yeah, you only have to worry about your own expenses. That's fine. It's a little easier. But if you're trying to go with your spouse and your kids, holy hell, like that adds up extremely quickly. Like if I just look at what I spent to go see Godzilla X Kong in 3D IMAX, and then got the popcorn, got the thing, I wound up spending 50 or so bucks. Like say you got a wife and then 2 kids, there's a $200 trip right there. That's not easy, right? That's not something that, at least in this economy, people can just, wipe their ass with 200 bucks.
That's exactly one of the reasons that's hurting the theaters on top of it. And I'm sympathetic to theaters because of what they get taken away by the studio, certain deals. I know we covered it years ago with The Last Jedi, how Disney was taking even more. Like, I'm sympathetic, and I try to buy a popcorn. I try to buy a water. I try to buy stuff at every theater I go to keep the movie theater going experience alive because I love it. What I want in my basement is a theater. But it's getting to the point where it's like, when I went to see The Fall Guy, it was $34 in concessions for like 3 things. And I'm happy to keep AMC alive, but I can't imagine trying to take multiple people on that. And the movies aren't enough. Like, there are some movies that have been out that I'm like, fuck, I'd take everybody I know. Like, I hate to go back, but The Avengers, I was so pumped. I saw it 4 times. I'd have paid if I was in college, I didn't have the money. I had the money for all my friends. I'd have taken us all out to go see that movie. That was a thing that I wanted like everybody to go experience. I don't get that anymore. And it's not because of this channel, and it's not because I'm jaded. It is because I'm not seeing movies that are worth it. I want to go out. I want to geek out. I want to freak out and see all this shit. I went to the Grauman's Chinese Theater, whatever it's called today, to see James Bond. That was expensive, but the movie sucked. And then I swore I never went back to that theater. Like, one bad experience where I spend a lot of money will turn me off from wanting to do more than just a basic ticket. And it's been a year of crap. We had WDW Pro on last year talking about this. Disney wouldn't have a hit for X amount of months. And he's right. All of them were flops. So I'm really just disappointed as like a moviegoer. Like,
and these studios are shooting themselves in the foot by having these overblown budgets. To Script's point, like a movie like Fall Guy, like that should not have had the expenditure that it did. And I don't know how much of that breaks down to, the effects and the shooting and, whatever Ryan Gosling's, freaking card was in terms of like his rate, or Emily Blunt's for that matter. But like if that movie had a far more controlled budget and they had told the same story just as effectively, which I'm sure they could have done, it would have had a far better chance of success. And these studios are shooting themselves in the foot by not getting these budgets under control. That is, exactly. I would never have expected that to be unless Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt, who I love both actors. I think they're both incredibly talented. I like them in virtually everything I've seen them in. But unless their rates are just obscenely high, there is no way in heck that film should have had that kind of a budget.
No, you're right. And I don't know if it all went to the race, because I think Ryan Gosling is maybe he's between 10 and $20 million a picture. Emily Blunt is not $10 million. She's cheap. So, and I'm not saying like,
I would love to make a movie with Emily Blunt. If she's cheap, sign me.
Well, she's
Emily
cheap
Blunt is a fantastic actor.
Probably close to 10 million.
Okay. Well, I can't afford 10 million. I'll work her down. I'll work her down.
But yeah, I mean, there shouldn't be any. The expenses should not be this big. I mean, Universal really just screwed the pooch when they decided to throw down that much money. I mean, that's why I'm actually really impressed with Warner Brothers and how well they're retaining their spending because they know they have to. One of the promises that Zaslav did when he took over the company is like he's got to reduce their overall debt, and he managed to do that ahead of schedule. And The Fall Guy is actually a surprisingly decent film. It's a fun romp. It actually broke a rollover record for a car. I think it had like 8 consecutive turns, which has never been achieved before. And a lot of the stunts were practical too, which was, I mean, something you don't get in as often as you would. I do think though, Aaron Taylor Johnson might be a movie curse, because everything he has been in has not performed to the standards of expectations. I mean, he's also in Kraven the Hunter.
He was in Avengers
Age of Ultron, and he was not well liked in that movie.
Well, they wrote his character pretty piss poorly, honestly.
Well, he's played a lot of pretty
came out the year
characters.
before.
That's the problem. Yeah. Yep.
Well, here's the thing. I've yet to see a script given to him that is quality. Like, Quicksilver was written horribly in that movie, and I enjoy Age of Ultron actually quite a lot. But he's one of my least favorite parts of that movie, because I'm like, well, that's not Pietro. That's not Pietro Maximoff, like, at all. Like, nothing about that character screams Quicksilver to me. Like, doesn't even whisper Quicksilver to me. And as one of Marvel's few speedster characters, he's a character I quite like, ordinarily, even though he's a bit of a prat. But he's different than a lot of other characters in the Marvel universe, and so I like him. But yeah, in the MCU, like, they completely screwed the pooch on his character there. Like, I'm willing to believe that if he's given a decent script, something good to work with, that he could do a good job. As to whether or not he's like box office cancer or poison, I couldn't really speak to that. I have no idea. I just know that I've yet to see him be given something that I'm just like, even if I remove him specifically and I just like supplant him with somebody else, right? Me think like, oh wow, that's a really good line, or that's really good writing for this character. I've yet to see that.
Well, that was in The Fall Guy. I mean, he's in it, and he says,
well, I haven't seen The Fall Guy yet.
That's okay. I mean, part of me, I'm looking at him and I'm looking at the track record, and I'm thinking, okay, he's got a similar track record to like Taylor Kitsch and Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Like, he's in these bigger tentpole style movies, but they just don't meet the metric required for them to say that he is a draw. And I don't think he is a draw. And we all know Kraven the Hunter is going to be a flop, and he is the lead in that. I think it would have been a flop regardless if he's the lead, but it doesn't bode well that we're seeing some sort of there's enough of there as a pattern to say if he's going to be leading a movie these days, it's probably not going to perform well, because he himself is not an audience draw. And then that goes back to something that was killed by Disney, which was the movie star. And they're killed by Disney because, again, Disney oversaturated. And at the same time, Hollywood didn't do anything to actually fight against social media influencers that were gaining more traction faster than the celebrities. They should have actually hit them with mockery, because most of those social media influencers actually have nothing to them, no substance, no core beliefs, no understanding. They're just good looking enough, and they repeat affirmations that allow people to just kind of be brought in. They are the equivalent of those midday paid for commercial ads where someone's telling you that you can make a lot of money by placing tiny classified ads in a newspaper. That is what a social media influencer was and is. And the fact that Hollywood couldn't fight against that in a very entertaining and comedic way to actually make that industry, that cottage industry, vanish overnight, shows you how poorly run Hollywood has been since the dawn of the internet age.
It's interesting when we break it down like that, and then we realize too just how far some of the social media influencer effect goes. Like we have a champion in wrestling, Logan Paul. That guy is a wrestler now. Like he's a rare example where there's somebody that's a social media star can back up something. But I find that people are enamored just with the famous people for being famous, and then like talented ones are just looked at differently. So, for example, like a Bryan Cranston or Giancarlo Esposito, great actors, get the respect they deserve. They're on TV, they're in movies.
Giancarlo Esposito is such a good actor.
He is. He is scary. He's funny. He's all of that. And I'm glad the guy has look, we may not like Disney Star Wars, but he got paid for that. Good for him. You know,
He's got a
Man
crazy
role,
range. He's got a really great range as an actor.
and he started doing much different work. He's in Trading Places. I don't think he has a speaking role, but he's in the jail cell with Eddie Murphy. Like, the dude had been around forever. So I'm always happy to see a guy like that hone his craft, get so good, and then make it. I don't feel like a lot of people, one, hone their craft because they're famous for other reasons, the way they look, the fact that they're in one type of thing. You know, not everybody has that crossover appeal. I don't look, I like Sydney Sweeney. She's a fine actress to the point where I'll go watch her, but she's like a step above like the type of actress that people go see just because she's hot. Like, I do think she's interesting enough where I'm like, okay, yeah, I'd watch that. I'd watch her do whatever.
She's not an extremely talented actress, or at least I've yet to see anything that shows me like, wow, that performance was like, that was bang on. Like, that was that shocked me. That surprised me. I was like, wow, that she had that in her. I give her credit just because she's not bad, and she's not. Wait, which film?
The series White Lotus. She's in that. She actually does some pretty decent performances there.
Oh, I will write that down.
The things that she's been very popular for recently, aside from The Pair, is she's done science fiction, action, and comedy. She hasn't done any serious dramatic acting yet, at least not on the bigger scale that we've seen. So that's where you're like, well, how do you rate your metric? Because for comedy, she can almost nail it.
She can do like, it seems to me like she can kind of do that awkward comedy, like, okay. Like, for example, in Madam Web, not a good movie. Like, she was able to pull off that awkwardness pretty well, which, to be clear, for those of you who are not familiar with the comic book version of Julia Carpenter, that isn't Julia Carpenter, but that's what she was given. I have respect for her actually deciding to pick up the comic books and wanting to do stuff that was in the comic books. I'll at least give her that much credit.
Brie Larson did the same thing with Captain Marvel.
Well, the problem was the Captain Marvel stuff was already trash to begin with. So it was like, hey, there's this stuff that Kelly Sue DeConnick wrote. I want to do that. Yeah, well, she wrote trash, so you want to do trash. Okay.
Oh, no, I mean, there's photos of Brie Larson reading the Miss Marvels from the 80s and so forth, too, to do as part of the research. And then later there's photos of her, I think, probably taken by her boyfriend or fiance at the time, of her reading the Kelly Sue DeConnick stuff. And you're like, well, I mean, at least she's doing covering everything. And then you see the actual Captain Marvel film. And you're
I certainly didn't see any of that in there.
What the heck is this? Like, this is not recognizable of any.
I will never forgive Marvel Comics or the MCU for not giving me the Carol Danvers that I really, really liked for about a decade and a half. That will forever upset me.
I see. I never wanted Captain Marvel or Miss Marvel or whatever she was called on screen because you wouldn't get the costume. And I always found her unlikable in the book too, much like Maria Hill. Like, Maria Hill in the movie is fine. Like, they got an actress that's in How I Met Your Mother, so she's
because Colby Smulders did a good job.
They wasted,
and part of that is
they did nothing with her.
Well, part of that is also they didn't make.
Well,
they didn't. Well, they killed her. Didn't they kill her off in freaking Shield?
No, they killed her off in Secret Invasion.
Yeah, Secret Invasion. That's what it was. That was. I stopped watching Shield after season 2, so for some reason I thought they killed her off in that. Well, but they also didn't make her as unlikable as she was in the books. So
they wrote her down because Joss Whedon made a pass at Colby Smulders, and Colby says, "No, I'm with this guy from SNL, and we have a kid." And he's just like, "Oh, well, then you're no longer Maria Hill, or at least no longer going to be used while he's working at Marvel." So her role in Avengers was reduced. She then her role in Avengers in Captain America Civil War, on Captain America Winter Soldier, then followed by Civil War, was greatly reduced. She was no longer going to be part of the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. television show. So she was only in the pilot part of that. Yeah, that's seriously kind of what happened, because Joss Whedon is known for going after his female leads a lot.
It's kind of creepy.
And so they wasted Colby Smulders on that. They also did. They also wasted like Brie Larson. I know someone said, well, Brie Larson is self-defense. Technically, It Wasn't Made for You was regarding A Wrinkle in Time, nothing to do with the MCU.
It had nothing to do with the MCU, but enough people who were watching the MCU saw that clip and were like, oh, is that right? And then obviously there were people who painted that as, and maybe partially reasonably so, taking that as like, oh, so you're gonna insult your audience in general.
No,
Well, it's not her audience. It wasn't her movie. Wrinkle in Time, she wasn't in. Like
Nope.
she made that speech about people who are upset with Wrinkle in Time, and she's
Right,
saying it
but
wasn't made
you
for
have to
it's like-
remember this is YouTube. People don't like context here. People don't like facts here.
Now, hold
so
on, though.
people decided
On
to
this
use that.
channel- well, I actually played that years ago with you, Script. I'm with you, man. Like, that is about A Wrinkle in Time and her dumb crap. We always talked about it. It's like when she did the whole, I don't need the opinion of white guys, it went, hold on a second now, that shouldn't be said because we don't worry about color. Everyone's opinions are valid, right? It's 2018 when she said it. So that always was such a, stupid thing to say.
It was.
I think
overall, yes, but like
I think
what
that's
she
a
did
dumb
really
thing to
targeting
say in
Marvel
any
fans.
instance.
Yeah.
No.
Your reaction should always be, yes, this is made for you. Go see my movie or go see this movie.
Well, how about this, though? I got a way for Marvel to make a quick buck in the new X-Men movie that you make. Bring Brie Larson back in a flashback to show how Rogue got her powers and have an elaborate scene where Rogue steals her powers and beats the shit out of her. Not only will you get people going back to see that scene because they hate that character, that'll help you make money. And people will then buy the movie on streaming or disc, and then they'll buy the digital version and they'll pay money to watch an unlikable character eat a shit sandwich. So Disney, Marvel, take the free advice. Have whoever plays Rogue in your X-Men movie, make sure she looks the part, can act, and don't put Kiki Palmer. Don't use any X-Men race swapping. I'm saying it. I don't care what people, you're this and that on the internet. Screw you. Okay?
No, to hell with them. Like, look, you don't need to race swap any X-Men characters. You don't need to make Rogue black. We have Aurora. All right? You don't need to make Cyclops or Wolverine black. We have Bishop.
Bishop's cool as shit.
Bishop is cool as hell. Like, you don't need to do any. Okay, I'm not going to get on a comic book.
There, man.
I'm not going to get on a comic book rant here. It'd be too easy, but it pisses me off so often when they do these race swaps because you're just ignoring all these amazing characters that are already the race that you're trying to elevate. We have these characters and they're cool.
Andrew, if you want to talk about superhero cape shit in a second, we have some super chats we're going to read from Xavier to God, as well as our friend Jack White, that involve it. Believe me, man, I'm not anti-Ramp. Believe me, I'm on your side about a lot of this stuff, to be perfectly honest with you. I know that there's like some other entity out there that you're going to get this thing you like, but they're going to scratch it up. It's like a beautiful car. We're bringing you your dream car. Imagine it. It's exactly the way you want it. You're really pumped for it. You're going to get it, but it's going to be keyed up. One big scratch. And all you'll ever do is focus on that scratch. You'll never enjoy the beauty of the thing. Or in reality, what you're getting from Disney Marvel is a keyed up car when what you're getting is a Toyota Camry when you were promised a Tesla. So you're getting crap. You're getting a 9.
I think you're Tokyo Drift and you're actually just peeling out of the AMC parking lot in your mom's Accord. You're really cool, Dominic Toretto. Good job.
Don't worry about that.
Every single Fast and the Furious film I saw in theaters, that was the case. Some jackass would be peeling out of the parking lot after the film. It's like, that's his mom's Accord.
No, Script, what were you saying, buddy?
I think that Professor Xavier is a real dick to Carol Danvers in the fact that because her mind has actually been imprisoned in Rogue, instead of just saying, hey, Rogue, let's go to the hospital bed where she is, and I'll use my powers to put her part of her mind, unlock the cage, put her back into her body, and then you don't have to deal with that anymore. Because he can do that. He has that power, and yet he never does because Professor Xavier, for all his grandstanding, is kind of a dick.
He is.
I mean, that was kind of a retcon of his character's personality in terms of really making him kind of subversive and underhanded in the way that he handled certain situations.
Wasn't he just trying to get a booty and be off on the Shi'ar Empire with legs, like trying to, like, look, we can get it. Professor X is a man underneath it all. And like all men, he has needs. But you have dedicated your life to mutant-human relations, and you can't just go off planet and leave people to die because you're trying to get some booty. That makes you the least of all the superheroes. Like, you're just a hero now, Professor X.
But who was it though?
But like he didn't
Well,
choose to leave. Shira took him. Not Shira. She took him and said he's not coming back because I'm gonna cure him. And it's like, well, he's in a state of near death. It's like he has no choice in the matter. And so he had no idea that after he was cured, he's like, wait a minute, I'm your prisoner here? Like, that was never brought up again. He's just like, okay, I guess everything's okay back on Earth. I'd like to check in. No, you can't. Why not? Because we forbid it. and then that leads into what we've got in X-Men 97. But it's just funny because she essentially lied to the X-Men when she took Professor X away in the original series, saying that, yeah, he'll never be able to return. And it's like, well, now that's a lie. You just wanted to keep him. You, Queen, wanted some bald mutant action on your spaceship, where Professor X was like, no, I could still go back to Earth and take care of my mutants, but I'm still going to be a dick about all this logical stuff, even when he's dealing with Moira McTaggart. And, you know, I tried to help your son. Really? What'd you do? Nothing. You put him in a box for 15 years? Jesus, Charles. Come on, man.
Yeah, I love when maybe we should do a series script, something under scrutiny, where we look at some famous comic book character and they're like most morally inept, morally
like Mr. Fantastic.
Yeah, like let's do that'd be a fun little series to like pick a hero, find those moments, have a discussion, talk about how they redeem themselves, if they actually redeem themselves, if it's a good character development story or if it's bad writing. I think that could be fun. We'll worry about it in the future.
Fun, yeah.
Now I wanted to put this out there about, you know, the stuff about X-Men 97. No, that actually does not happen. Wolverine and Cyclops are not gay at all. They don't have any kind of anything. We reviewed every single episode here on the channel for you guys. I was watching it with a very fine lens. I was making sure to see what was there. Some of the subtext in the very beginning actually is, I wouldn't call it anti-woke. What I would say is it's funny because it tells the people who are the mutants that they need to work hard to be a part of society. And if the mutants represent some of the people of today, the woke people that people want to call them, then the message is, hey, you guys got to be better people in society and stop sucking. Like that's kind of the message. And it's a fun show because it had callbacks and stuff like that, but it didn't stick the landing. And I was very disappointed at the end of it. So I don't want to show up to it. I don't want another spin-off crossover episode. Like, give me the X-Men, put them back in those Jim Lee costumes and get them out there fighting. I want to see more X-Men adventures. I don't want to see more Marvel crossover little mini-sodes. Like, I love Spider-Man. There's 50 Spider-Man figures up there. I should be pumped to see him, and I am, but once was enough. And like, let's stop with nostalgia, because now it's nostalgia for nostalgia. And it's stupid because I personally will take it like as I'm angry because I can't get away from my childhood entertainment. It keeps coming back. Now, yeah, it's nice to have access to something like GoldenEye or Tony Hawk. I love to go back to those. There are other games. They don't make all video games based on GoldenEye or Tony Hawk. If they did, it'd be stupid. But all the stuff that's made today is based off nostalgia for shit that was out when I was a kid. Like, we got through the 80s nostalgia. Now we're in this 90s nostalgia. And then this next generation is like into 90s because they're nostalgic for it. And we're not creating anything new. So it's a loop.
And they also weren't here for the 90s.
No.
That's the worst part. That's they're not taking the few things that were actually great in the 90s and running with that. They're being like, oh, well, this is just the 90s aesthetic. This is just like what the 90s kind of look like, because they're tangentially associated and familiar with it on just a super surface level. And they're like, okay, so this is the member berry stuff. That's where you get the nostalgia bait. That's where you get the stuff that's like, hey, this looks on the very surface level like the thing that we grew up with. But then if you give it more than just the most paltry of scrutiny, you're like, this isn't anything like the thing that I grew up with. Like, it's masquerading as the thing that I grew up with. It's pretending to be the thing that I grew up with. It kind of looks like it. If you look at it sideways, you tilt your head enough. All right, yeah, that kind of looks like that character. But then you spend more than 5 seconds actually looking at it with your head turned straight. And you're like, well, what the hell is this? It's because they weren't here. Not only were they not here, but they didn't decide to pay attention. retroactively.
Yeah, and it just sucks because the thing is, like, it's cool to like that. And now I got to sit through Beetlejuice, another Beetlejuice, 35 years, 36 by the time it comes out, because Beetlejuice, I think, came out in March of 88. I was born in October. Anyway, that's irrelevant. My point is, like, we're bringing back Beetlejuice, something that was great and never needed to be touched because Beetlejuice lived in this perfect bubble, like Back to the Future. It was this thing that had, well, there's one movie and it was great. And every couple of years they'd release some merchandise. And every year at Halloween, the girls would dress up as Lydia and everybody watches that movie because it's just a great movie. No matter what Alec Baldwin did, excuse me, Adam Baldwin's a good guy. But Alec Baldwin aside, Beetlejuice was great because it was a catalog title that came around every time a new format was released. Beetlejuice was early on. It's always had a presence everywhere beyond just Halloween. Beetlejuice was a thing. I'm really worried that this will change the Beetlejuice status because no matter what, like, it sits at 100%. If you make a bad movie, then Beetlejuice is half bad. And so everyone's going to be kind of disappointed. And then the next generation will go, I don't like this. Why do people like the old one? Like, Beetlejuice didn't need to be touched. I love the Michael Keaton career resurgence, but Batman was kind of cool for 5 minutes, and then you realize you're watching a Flash movie again. And Beetlejuice, I'm worried it's going to be just too self-referential and too self-congratulatory. And I am fearing it's a Force Awakens 4.0, where it's the characters hyper aware of the events of the first movie and relaying them to the audience. So if they don't have context for the first film, it doesn't matter. This is not a reboot, but it tells you the whole movie and you're aware of it. And it's like, I get good exposition should give you context. But if I'm going to have characters literally tell like the full story of the first Beetlejuice and all this shit, like, come the fuck on.
That's stupid. That's poor writing.
Well,
Jeff, I'm gonna need. I hate
Miles
this. I hate this phrase, Jeff, but I'm gonna need a trigger warning every single time you plan on bringing up that garbage piece of shit Flash film that I had to sit through. Okay.
Now, Script, what were you saying? I did not cut you off.
Sorry. No, that's okay. I'm saying the writers for this are Al Gough and Miles Miller, who wrote Smallville. Who wrote Wednesday, and that's how they got the job to write Beetlejuice, because Tim Burton liked what they did with Wednesday. Even though it's their show and they brought him in as a director. They're television writers. They're not particularly, they're decent in the sense that they can get stuff done on a deadline and they know how to craft a show and they actually know how to run a show really well. But they're not, I would not call them actually really competently good writers that actually make waves. They're not James Burrows, who did Cheers and then Frasier. And knew how to make people laugh and cry and all those things. Al Gough and Miles Miller are guys that know how to target the 13-year-olds and know exactly what they need to say in order to get their attention, hook them, and hold on to them, which is a very valuable skill in television. Doesn't work so much on the theatrical side of things because a lot of parents would never want to sit down and watch the shows that their teenagers are watching that are teen angsty drama stuff, unless you were a teenager at the time when those shows premiered and you wanted to share them with your kids. And that's actually the only audience you're going to get. And guess what? That audience is really small, maybe a couple million people. And Beetlejuice might get that good opening weekend because of the nostalgia factor, the anticipatory market of wanting to see Michael Keaton back in the role again, just like with Tom Cruise and Top Gun Maverick. However, Top Gun Maverick was just a Star Wars story, primarily the assault on the Death Star redone in U.S. military Air Force, Navy terms. But Beetlejuice doesn't have anything to it other than the fact that they go back to the old home in Connecticut after Grandpa dies, and the kid unlocks Beetlejuice. So now we're actually going to have Beetlejuice in the majority of the film, where in the original movie, he is in it for maybe 12, 13 minutes.
Yep.
Because it's not about Beetlejuice. It's about the Dietzes and dealing with the death. So, there's a lot of questions that they're going to have to ask. It's going to be addressed. It's all going to be done in very poor dialogue. It's going to have some cheeky notions to it. It's going to be very dated. It's not going to hold up the way that the original Beetlejuice did, and it probably won't have the charm or kookiness in the characters that the original Beetlejuice did, but it might actually have a little bit of Tim Burtonisms back there, if he can actually get back to that point in his life again, because Tim Burton has not really been Tim Burton since Planet of the Apes, actually.
I do not like that movie at all. Thanks for reminding me.
Sorry, but like that's the only metric I can think of. Like, when did Tim Burton stop being Tim Burton? Well, Planet of the Apes.
It is the
he got close to Big Fish, but didn't.
That I have different feelings about that movie. Like, I saw it when I was younger and I thought it was cool, and then I watched it when I was older and I was like, oh. So I like Ewan McGregor though, but I just don't want Beetlejuice to be a franchise that's tainted. It's a personal thing. I'm aware of that, but more is not always more, Hollywood. Sometimes we like Beetlejuice to just be this memory of an amazing movie where the main character is not the main character, but the titular. No, the movie's called Beetlejuice with a J. His name is spelled with a Geuse in the movie, so it's not even technically his name. Like, never mind. I'm going to leave
antagonist. Like, that's the thing, is that the trick is that he is the end all antagonist, but it's a dual tiered antagonist, because what we actually have in the original Beetlejuice is we have two parties that are fighting over the same house, and one's ghosts and the other one is a living, and that's what they're at conflict with each other. And then Beetlejuice is the antagonist that can either tip the scales into one direction, and that's kind of what it's about. It's a very abstract. It's not a normal hero's journey type of story. It's really just a man versus man, but one set of men are undead or are dead, and it's playing into those tropes, and it does it actually quite well. So yeah, like there's no real. The conflict is just, can these two people find a way to not necessarily live together, but occupy the same space together properly? And they're all just trying to come, and they'll have their own goals and needs. Like, the Dietzes just want to be by themselves. Lydia is trying to figure out who she is as a teenager. And then her dad and her mom have gone out to the country because his workaholic nature has led him to nearly have a heart attack and die. So he wants to not do that right away.
Yep.
And he wants to be there for his kid. And then, of course, you've got Catherine O'Hara, who's a would-be artist, but she makes sculptures that are horrifying.
This is my art, and it is dangerous.
And she doesn't want to die like this.
No, that is okay. So I'm Team Michael Keaton all day, but some of her moments are the funniest in that movie.
Oh yeah,
especially
Catherine
with
O'Hara
the Deus. And
you don't get many actors today that can meet to the standards of Catherine O'Hara, Madeline Kahn, or Meryl Streep, and those three are kind of like the peaks of female talent that can nail any role that they're given. Also, they have a great understanding of comedy, which I don't know what it is in the XX chromosomes, but for some reason, the vindictive aspect is not always the same as just comedy. And there are women that can do it, but those are the ones you got to hold on to, man. when you find one with a great, true sense of humor, not just being mean.
I hope Catherine O'Hara gets to do stuff in this new movie. Like, the characters are awesome in the movie, but I will say it's missing one character that can't be replaced, and he's really going to be missing. That's Otho, because Otho is the unsung hero of Beetlejuice. He is the character that you need to balance off everything else, because he gets to be annoying but useful, a punchline, but a setup as well. Otho's cool. Otho is like, and I don't mean to put this as a one-to-one role, but a lack of Otho will probably be like a lack of Dr. Loomis in Halloween, where you'll have Jamie Lee Curtis versus Michael Myers, and everybody thinks that's the thing, but you got to have Loomis as that trifecta. Otho is a great, I don't know if he's a foil or what he would be in the world of the story, but Otho just fits in every scene so well, and you can't copy that. So R.I.P.
He's the buffoon. He's the goof. He's the clown of the party, like the one that you can actually do all the horrible things to and nobody will care, but you still like him anyways. Unfortunately that actor has passed away.
Oh yeah, he sadly fell down. That was how he passed away. I'm not going to make a joke about it, but Glenn Shaddock's R.I.P. He was in Demolition Man, and he's probably the funniest part of that movie too.
And you know what's funny? There's an industry of people that on the voice over side of things that try to replicate his voice because he's got this weird, like deep but smooth type of thing going on when he delivers. And I know a bunch of voice actors that
like a
love
Barry White or a James Earl Jones
something like that. There's some sort of
or a
smoothness
Keith
to it.
David.
Oh yeah.
Well,
I've
listen
I
been-
would love to meet Keith David one of these days and be
I
like,
already
sir,
have.
oh, you
He was
suck,
nice as hell. But script,
dude.
I know
wanna
I know
meet
what you're
him so
talking
bad.
about his voice, because in the scene where he reads the handbook for the recently deceased, you know, he like Viridian's thigh, blah 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 blah, and he like says the incantation to kill the Maitlands and turn them back into like zombies or something. I don't know how that works, but anyway, yeah, his voice is cool. He was in a good episode of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air where he played a genie, not a genie, a fortune teller. There you go. That's the phrase.
They're the same thing.
Yeah. Now, folks, stick around. We're going to read some messages and we have more topics on the way. But before we get into that, folks, I think it's time to check this out. Hey,
Dude, I was
you
so hyped the second that music hit.
thank you. Thank you. Now,
Nobody in the chat could see, but I think pretty much only you could see. I was
dancing
rocking
good.
out to that so hard. I was like, yes, let's fucking go.
So, folks, thank you for checking that out. I'm excited to bring that to you. We're going to talk about it more and have more later on. Starting tomorrow, you can sign up for that and get yourselves a copy. So, thank you to everybody who watched it. I had a lot of fun drawing the book. I wrote and drew it myself. I did not animate that at all. No. Prevalent Mind Studios. We worked with them. We have a team of people for all the comics that we're working on here, and Wokebusters is our next big one. So let's break some records, you know, break the bank. Let's have a lot of fun with Wokebusters.
Let's freaking do it.
Yeah.
Dude, that remix of the song was so on point. I might actually like it more than the original, and I'll tell you why. Because I have this really strange, I admit it, I have a very strange love, adoration, and obsession with the kind of 80s, like archetypical, like that synth sound that is just very, very stereotypical of 80s movies, 80s TV, 80s music. And that remix to it for Wokebusters of the Ghostbusters theme, that synth wave kind of poppy, man, that slaps so hard.
Well,
that was a 10 out of 10, and I do not do that. I do not say that lightly.
Well, thank you. I'm very excited. You got to remember, I have lived with this in my head for like this trailer idea for a long time, ever before the book was finished, because that song, that is not the Wokebusters theme. That is something else that's just out there in the ether. I have the real song that I got commissioned. I'm just looking for somebody to sing it, but that song will come out later into the campaign to keep things exciting. But yes, there is a Wokebusters theme song. There is a phone number. There's going to be an updated version of this trailer that will have the phone number when the Wokebusters flash across screen, because that's a scene in the book where there's a commercial. There will be a phone number that you're able to call. I already have it established. I just need to record a couple of the answering messages, and we're going to keep making this fun. So keep watching, folks. There's a ton to talk about, a ton to cover. But the thing I wanted to tell you, Andrew, is I listened to that song most days before getting ready to draw a page because I was like, all right, like I love drawing. Don't get me wrong, but sometimes you need a cup of coffee to get going. So I would put that song on, I kind of shake it off, and I go, all right. And then what I would do is I'd listen to that song, I'd see how the trailer is going to look, and some of the because I personally don't really storyboard it. What I do is I do a rough version in a sketchbook like this. Does this have anything from Wokebusters in it? Probably not. No. Well, yeah, it has this. This is super rough, but you can't even see it on camera. My point is I would draw shit like this after listening to the theme song. I'll send you a picture of it. It's literally just like a dome. Never mind. Anyway, that's the trailer, folks. It's here. The book
is for
done.
Inspiration, though. Like the music, I totally get that. Like I'm in the middle of writing a script right now. NDA. But like certain types of music can actually get you in the zone, get you in the vibe, get you in the mood, and in the right mindset for what you're trying to write, what you're trying to draw, and that will change based on what the genre is that you're working with. And so I absolutely get that, man. If I was writing anything, and I'm not, I wouldn't even consider myself remotely ciential when it comes to Ghostbusters because I've only seen the original film several times, that's for sure. But I haven't seen any of the sequels. No, I saw Afterlife. All right, I saw Afterlife, and that was fun.
That's a good one.
But if I was a mega fan of the Ghostbusters franchise and I was trying to write something that was meant to be like an homage or a parody or even a sequel to, that song would get me in the mood for that so hard. That was fantastic, man. That is a phenomenal trailer.
Well, thank you. I got to say, now this isn't, Wokebusters is many things. Wokebusters is a parody of Ghostbusters. It's a satire of society. That's why it's drawn in a cartoony way, because we live in a literal cartoon these days. It's a lot of those things, but it's the only Ghostbusters parody that's going to follow like the structure in a way most people don't think about, because all they want to do is hit the joke notes. This book is not me making woke parody Ghostbusters jokes. I follow the structure of the story. I broke it down on a deeper level. You know, Ghostbusters, they have X amount of interactions with ghosts. I have specific interactions with woke beings, and structurally, it's very Ghostbusters. It will feel like it because it's not trying to copy. First off, it's a parody of it, but it's not trying to copy the stuff like Who You Gonna Call and all that kind of stuff. It's very aware of what it is, but it's not reliant on really a knowledge of Ghostbusters. But if you know the movie, you'll get it, because I got nods in there. But it's also a love letter to a lot of great genre-specific entertainment, because if I'm talking about an action scene, there might be a callback to Die Hard or something in it. So, folks, go to the page. Tomorrow,
was that a spoiler? Jeff, was that a spoiler? I'm having to wrangle spoilers every day of my life now.
You can wrangle a spoiler.
Was that a free spoiler?
That was a free spoiler, man. Here's the thing. I've talked a lot about this book, but I have told you folks very little about the actual story. So just be ready, folks. And you were talking about convenience earlier. The books will ship direct to you. All you got to do is grab a copy and it'll be on its way. But we're offering some cool tiers. I'll save that for a specific time when it's launched so you guys can get amped up. But I will make that live tomorrow. I'll be talking about that moving forward. And on Thursday, we'll give you a rundown, and I will be making videos. I have video of me drawing all the pages. I drew it on an iPad. So I will produce narrated content about the process. I'm going to give you guys an inside look at a book. You're going to know what it was like to create Wokebusters. You'll be on the journey with me, because I
love that behind the scenes stuff, man. That BTS stuff is the coolest stuff in the world. I'm honestly shocked I didn't burn out my DVDs for the prequel trilogy and for the Jurassic Park trilogy, from how many times I watched like the featurettes, the makings of all of that stuff.
That was me with the Bond DVDs, dude.
Dude, I would watch the movie, and I kid you not, there was like a year or two straight where I would watch those movies virtually daily, and immediately after watch the makings of like all of the featurettes, every single one of them, just go through them line by line, because I loved that stuff. It was super interesting to me. I have paltry knowledge of film and stuff because I've got a film certificate, TV certificate, all of that, because it was super interesting to me and I like entertainment. But watching those made me want to like be a part of that process at some point in my life so badly because it was just so interesting to me, all the different intricacies and the stuff that goes on that you don't know about and you don't see and don't think about when you're just sitting there in your seat enjoying the finished product, all this other stuff that's layered. So man, the fact that you're doing behind the scenes stuff for your book, that makes me all the more excited for this.
Well, thank you. I just want everyone to know we're, making Wokebusters the comic event of 2024, 2025, and every year moving forward. There might be sequels, there may be more. But, folks, I have a comic name picked out. I have the domain secured. I have all these things locked down. Wokebusters is the start of something bigger. And at the end of the year, I will have another smaller comic, intentionally smaller, but a very good story, something that you've never seen before. And then next year, we're going to do American Kaiju in 2025. And then the multi-chapter superhero adventure character, which I'm not going to tell you about yet.
Jeff said Kaiju.
American Kaiju. It's a long story short, but it was, again, an idea that was formed here on the podcast, kind of as a joke. Somebody sent us a video about as Paul Bunyan a kaiju, and we watched it, and we're starting to bounce ideas off of like some stuff that we talked about. That's all I'm going to tell you on air, because like this was something we came up with, and I'm like, whoa, this is.
I'm already excited for it. I'm already in. I'm buying a copy.
I had a listener. I tested out Twitter Spaces the other day, and the guy asked me right away. He's like, "Hey man, what about that comic?" And I went, "Yeah, that's kind of in production. Don't worry." And I'm like, "Cool, people like that concept. I'm glad you dig it too." The art's going to look a little like a storybook. Remember those like painterly style storybooks that we grew up with as a kid?
Yeah.
It's going to look like that kind of art for that book. So
man, I am so excited to see the success of all your books you've got coming down the pipeline.
Well, thank you. I just enjoy doing it. Realistically, folks, I'm grateful. Stealing Solo was a pleasure to make. It's great that it still sells. Thank you to everybody who keeps buying copies of it. Stealing Solo was a huge hit and a huge part of last year's WCBS growth, so that was fun. And it's nice to know that you guys enjoy that story. I'm offering a tier on the campaign for those who don't have Stealing Solo or all the editions or whatever. I'm going to be offering that as like a bonus tier with everything I've ever done. And the reason I'm doing that is, remember, folks, I made you a promise. Once we sell through all the Stealing Solos, that's going to be a sequel getting made, and then I want to make the third one for me. So it's basically, you finish the campaign, you finish the rest of the books, you're getting 2 more comics guaranteed. So I'm here on Wokebusters so you guys can have an extra chance to grab that. The book bundle is so big, I can only ship to the United States and Canada though. So I'm sorry to let people know, but I'm giving you a heads up. It's very expensive to ship a box this size to foreign lands. So I am making sure everybody around the world has access to Wokebusters and all of the stuff, because I want to bring you guys what you want. And Frankenfisher, The Bride of Solo, is the greatest comic book you've never read. So be prepared.
The name alone should sell you on that. Chat, the name alone for that book should sell you immediately. That should make you want to buy the 2 prior books without ever having read them. Just the title.
And one thing too I want to say is, like, I want to experiment with different styles. I don't want to lock myself down to one specific thing yet. So Frankenfisher is going to be drawn like an EC comic. It's going to be like a horror comic. It's going to be funny as shit. Like, that's the joke.
Horror. I think we know a couple of people here that are fans of horror.
Maybe when we get around to producing a trailer like the wonderful Yaira trailer for Frankenfisher, we know some horror people. It's supposed to be like a Bride of Frankenstein cover where she's going to be struck by lightning and the bolts are going to be her earmuff hair pieces and all that shit. Like, I got this mapped out. All we got to do is get rid of the remaining copies. Just a couple hundred left of each. So, folks, you can either go to stealingsolo.com or you can just get it on the Kickstarter for Wokebusters tomorrow. Yes. So, guys, that is your quick update with the comic company going to be named Renaissance Comics for many specific reasons. I will tell you more about it later, but I write, I draw, I do it all. So let's bring in a new age of the comic book. Let's have fun with these
Let's
books.
freaking do it. Let's all be great together.
Yeah, let's have fun, folks. My brand ethics is let's have a good time. That's it. Let's have some fun with comic books, okay? They can be for all ages, all kinds of stuff. Comics are for a lot of people. Not everybody likes comic books, but they just haven't found the right one yet. We'll find it. So Xavier to God, thank you very much. Speaking of comic book related stuff, since you guys have seen the spectacular Spider-Man, Wolverine and the X-Men, and Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes, I recommend Iron Man Armored Adventures. It's the best Iron Man show and has a catchy theme song. I remember that show.
Actually. I have not
Is that
seen
the one where Tony Stark's a teenager?
Yep.
That is okay. I remember trailers for it, but I never watched it. Because I think at the age that I was in, I was like, Marvel hasn't put out good animation in a while. Not interested. I'm okay. Like, I'm good. And I was never a gigantic Iron Man fan either. I was one of the vast majority of comic book fans where I was like, yeah, Iron Man's like, he's a B-lister. He's fine. He's got some good stories for sure that could be told in other mediums. But I had no real interest in an animated series of him. Especially if he was as a teenager. I do remember that being kind of the main thing for me. I was like, and I think I was a teenager or a preteen at the time when it came out and being like,
no, it came out when we were in college because it came out around the time of the first Iron Man movie.
Did it? Was it? Okay, so either way, he was an age where it was like, I was completely cognizant that Iron Man was not a teenager. Tony Stark was never a teenager when he created the first Iron Man suit. And I was like, what the hell is this? Not interested. I'm good. I don't need that. I can just give me a character, and it doesn't matter if they're the same age demographic as me. I can get latched onto them.
Yeah, Batman's the prime example. You don't need to de-age him.
I'm not a multi-billionaire dude, and
I also too there's a level of maturity that comes with the characters when they reach a certain age, and you can tell a different type of story. Spider-Man lives on the cusp of the childhood, mentality, the anger, the youthful rage, all that shit.
Sure.
Then he becomes an adult through the course of the book, and then you get that maturity from Spider-Man that makes the character growth unique because you don't follow as many characters grow for that long.
There are a lot of parts of Tony Stark's character and his arc that you can't do with a teenager. Not like, and it be okay. Like him being a womanizing alcoholic and all of this stuff and like warmonger. It's like, that doesn't work if you're a teenager. Like, I'm sorry. Like if you're an adult and all of that stuff like that, you can tell that story, and that story has been told, and it's been told very well. But it just like, when I was in college, when that show was like advertised, I was like, why do I want a teenage Tony Stark? I don't. That's the answer. I don't want a teenage Tony Stark. Like, give me Tony Stark. That's the same reason why I didn't need a teenage-esque Peter Parker when I was a teenager. Like, I was perfectly fine with him being married.
Dude, and in the cartoon, he was like 21. He was in college. He wasn't fresh out of high school, and he
looked like he was in his mid-20s in the 90s show. Like,
that's fine with me. Everybody was 35.
Yeah, if you want to read teenage Peter Parker, you will just go back to Amazing Fantasy 16. That's where he started.
You can do that. Those stories exist. I don't need him to be in that phase of his life in perpetuity.
He's in the book. He's in high school for 28 issues. And like that's it. He graduates when Steve Ditko's the artist.
Yeah.
Because Spider-Man, when he's
so super early on.
And if you read the Marvel letters and you read the actual issue, what does it say? Our most requested Spider-Man story. Spider-Man finally graduates high school. People were writing in letters asking for that. So
people wanted the character to grow up. Fans were saying it that early on.
Yeah. I'm just saying, man, like he's always like going to be like a young man superhero, but like people back then even wanted him out of high school because there's a limit to telling Spider-Boy stories, and we exhausted that limit with Tom Holland, and now it's time to pull the trigger and give us a fully fleshed out trilogy of an adult Spider-Man who has real struggles and issues. I want to watch my character of Spider-Man eat a shit sandwich and then pick himself back up and metaphorically brush his teeth and move on. Like, I want to see the character go through stuff and then succeed. I hate watching characters that are coddled or have their problems solved. It's a fictional story. You don't need to write babysitter characters. The real world's full of them. Tony Stark shouldn't have been a Spider-Man Uncle Ben surrogate. He should not have been a mentor.
Nope,
should
that
not
was
have been
horse shit
involved.
from day one. And I know the Saskas, whom I love both of them to death, and I love you to death, brother. No homo. I know you're not fans of Andrew Garfield, but Andrew Garfield said it best. He was like, Peter Parker would not be some Tony Stark worshiping simp because they come from completely different perspectives and backgrounds. It would absolutely not work. You can have the characters work alongside each other, but
He'd be a simp for Captain America.
For exactly, you cannot convince me that Peter Parker would look at Tony Stark as a father figure. It doesn't work. It absolutely does not work. Andrew Garfield got it.
Like, they would be able to connect in talking science. Like, that's the one thing.
Absolutely.
That's not the same as being a proper mentor. Like, one of the things I thought was fascinating about the Spider-Man character is that he has no real mentor. His mentor is Uncle Ben, who is essentially a memory.
He's a singular character. He's a character who his father figure and his best influences, for the most part, are characters that are no longer in his life in the physical sense. He has to try and carry on that legacy, carry on those memories, and try and act in the best way he possibly can. The ethics and the morals and the lessons that were instilled in him. Aunt May still being around, obviously, of course, but is in terms of a father figure, to your point, Ben's no longer around. That's a difficult thing to do. How do you I can't actually even conceptualize that. And I was blessed with a wonderful father who was always there for me, who worked incredibly hard and instilled in me a work ethic and all of these great things. I can't imagine what that's like, trying to take just a small snapshot of what that was and going through the vast majority of my life trying to live that out. Like, Peter Parker's he's got it rough, man.
Yeah.
The script, what are you saying?
I mean, like, well, yeah, his parents die. He's raised by an aunt and uncle. He has no living relatives because Aunt May is not a blood relative. She's just there by marriage, and she's taking care of him in his later, like, again, he's a mid-teenager, so she only has to look after him for 3 years, and then she can go do her own thing. But she doesn't. She actually sticks around because she does love the kid. And there's a lot of depth to that. Unfortunately, Marvel editorial really clinged on to the Aunt May sticking around all the time, even when never necessary. Almost to the point where it became a detriment to Peter's character, where he's so codependent on her just being alive that he can't move on to actually appreciate everything else he's managed to accomplish for himself as well. I mean, that's how we got to One More Day. I mean, if they just realized, yeah, you know what, we can actually have him say goodbye to Aunt May, even though I think there's a number of times where they've almost done that. I've got a comic book where Aunt May is kind of dying, and then Doc Ock is involved somehow doing this. This is like a late 80s, early 90s issue. God, I can't remember the title of it. I've got it somewhere in a box. But they've tempted the readership with Aunt May passing away and Peter Parker moving on to the next phase of his life. And every single time they chicken out. This is where, like, he also becomes temporarily a ghost for a moment too. Like, it's not the Superior Spider-Man. This is like 30 years before that.
Yeah, trying to analyze in issue 400, which is what, 94, 95 maybe.
Aunt May should have died in One More Day. I'm just gonna say it. Aunt May should have died in One More Day. The One More Day should have been in reference to the final day that Peter has with Aunt May. And her at the end, kind of looking at Peter, looking at Mary Jane, saying, paraphrasing to something to the effect of, I've entrusted you with the morals and the ethics that I have raised you with, and I trust you to go out into the world and live those out and do the same thing with your children. And that be that. Peter now has to move from that phase of his life into the next. And now his focus in terms of family is Mary Jane and his eventual kid or kids. We don't need Aunt May around forever. And I love Aunt May as a character, but that would have been the perfect ending, because that would have actually been more consistent with the character of Peter and of Mary Jane and of Aunt May, and that none of them would have made that choice to sacrifice his marriage and his, eventual kids for Aunt May, who was already very well along in years. She would have said, hell no. I have lived a wonderful life. I've gotten to see you grown into this wonderful man. Now you need to go into the world and continue to be that man.
I just wish Aunt May would have stayed dead in 1995, and then we would have avoided, like... I just hate 90s Spider-Man before the Clone Saga hits. I'm sorry. I'm going to avoid that rant for everyone out there tonight. For the benefit of those who watch the show, we're going to move on. Lord of Opossums, thank you for your nice comment. We will read that in just a moment, but I want to thank Xavier to God for giving us a quick game to play. Buy it, watch it in theaters, stream it. I like this. My 3 favorite movies of all time. Here we go. Spider-Man, Transformers, and Star Wars Revenge of the Sith. So easy. I'm going to buy Spider-Man because I own it on... I don't own it on VHS because it was new on DVD, and who wanted a DVD or a VHS tape when you had the DVD player? PS2 was out too, so that I digress. Sorry. Anyway, I'm buying Spider-Man. I'm watching Star Wars in theaters, and then I stream Transformers because I don't dislike any of these movies. And I just say this for people who get confused sometimes, not our audience, but the people who will find this later. I don't dislike Revenge of the Sith. It's not my favorite Star Wars movie, but it's not a bad film. And to act like it's as bad as the Disney stuff is silly. It's not.
It has its worst parts are like anything the prequels, which is George's dialogue.
And you know what though? It gives, and I know this is silly, but the memes that come from Episode 3 have given it a new life. Where Episode 3 is probably the internet's the most famous Star Wars movie to the internet, because there are a lot of people that haven't seen it, but they all know hello there and all the memes and shit like that.
I was about to say, how many of those people that are familiar with the memes haven't actually seen the freaking film?
That's what I'm saying, man. I bet you I could find a way to get the metric. I'd make you a Dukes Brothers bet. Revenge of the Sith is the most talked about, used, whatever Star Wars movie for the audience, because it just hits all the text, checks all the boxes, and has the memes. What do you guys say? Anything you want to add to Xavier to God's question?
No, I agree. I'd buy Spider-Man, watch Revenge of the Sith in theaters, and stream Transformers.
Hell yeah. You have good taste. Thank you, Xavier to God. Andrew, you agree with that too?
Yeah, I'll go with it.
Nice. Now, Jack White, I am glad to hear from you, my friend. Before I read any of your messages, first off, thank you. I have been on an anime kick because, folks, I told you we're taking the channel to Japan in 2025. Already bought the Star Wars Celebration tickets. We are putting the world in world-class bullshitters. So, folks, join us. Get involved on the journey. We're taking it west or east, depending on which way you want to travel. But I've been watching a ton of anime. I'm deep into Dragon Ball Z. I watched City Hunter the other day. Even though it wasn't in English, I gave it a shot because it was bitchin' looking show. I'm consuming a lot of this stuff, Jack. So be prepared. Now, folks, I know the holiday.
Like Jeremy Irons is be prepared. Be prepared.
You sound like Thurl. What's his name? Thurl Maingood or whatever. The guy that sings the Grinch theme. That was the voice I was picking up from you. I like it though.
You're a mean one, Mr. Grinch.
You really are a heel. Anyway, I don't sing. Jeff,
that's going to be stuck in my head now for the rest of the night. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's only May. Great. Wait till you get to Christmas time with Mariah Carey. All she wants for Christmas is you, folks. Remember.
Listen.
Don't tell me you like that song. Don't you tell me you like that.
It's not the song. It's not the song. The song I can live without. But Mariah Carey specifically herself, even though she can't do what she used to be able to do, she is the reason why I started singing at all.
Look, that is fair. I get your love for her. According
but that
to the
song,
audience,
I understand. That song, I understand.
It's just, what's funny though? I complain about it like I hear it all season long. I hear it twice a year now. It's like so many places are aware that people hate it that I just don't hear it as much. I think it gets streamed a lot by people to play it ironically or to fuck with other people. But when I walk into stores, I swear I counted 2 times this holiday season, and Christmas was happier without it. So ho 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 and all that other horse shit. Now, Jack, I asked the guys to forward me the email I got an email about a sponsorship and something else. I'm sorry I didn't get that one about the mayor. I will.
Sponsorship.
Yeah, we get them a lot, but I always want there to be like funded by the people, so it's directly what they want, all that kind of shit, but not PBS boring. Just more like audience.
What's a sponsorship that if it was offered to you, you would be like, done?
I'm working on one, and I'll tell you off air. But anything related to something I believe in would be nice. Anything that I think would be useful for the audience or beneficial to them, because why not? I don't want to try to sell them, I don't know, thin guards or something random like soccer balls or cleats or a heating pad. But it would just have to be something cool and something that's world class.
Shaquille O'Neal with Icy Hot.
Yes. Shaquille O'Neal can come to WCBS and promote Icy Hot. Hell, we'll do a general commercial with that, dude. They got Bad Luck Brian. We'll get Jeff from WCBS.
That's amazing.
But Jack, I will try to get into the email. I've been having an issue logging into the email like Kendo. Only Nick can get it, so I'll ask him again. But he has some new recommendations, which means I got to take some. On our Last Crusade or the Rise of a New World, Romeo and Juliet type story with good action and superpowers. Our Last Crusade or the Rise of the New World. Okay, so I got those on the picture. Also, Jack, I found out that I had been paying for Crunchyroll for a year, and now I'm using it regularly, so I can watch more stuff. I feel silly, but I paid for it, so I'm going to keep it.
I've been paying for Crunchyroll for like 4 or 5 years, and
Me too, and I didn't realize.
I'm not going to go into that.
Dude,
I only recently started using it again for the first time in like 2 years.
I don't like to. I know I've made comments about anime in the past, and I'm not going to all of a sudden only watch anime. I'm going to like all art forms from around the world. But it is nice to have access to like Lupin the Third right away. It's like, there he is. I'm going to watch him. I do want dubbed entertainment, though. I'm tired of subtitles. I'm sorry if you're a purist out there.
Crunchyroll has a lot of subs without dubs, and that does annoy the shit out of me because I like being able to have anime on, but also do other things, and I can't do that if I have to be reading while I'm watching.
And also, I have voices associated with Lupin the Third. I prefer the Cartoon Network cast.
Thank you.
And the nice part is, too, dude, they've gone back and they have rehired all of that cast with the exception of, I think they switched one of the guys to do a different voice, but it's mostly the same cast. And they're back doing all the back stuff because Lupin the Third, the woman called Fujiko Mine, was such a hit that it like renewed Funimation, I guess, is who did it. They just put money into Lupin and they've gone back and done, I believe, dubs of most of the stuff. I thought Crunchyroll was going to have it and it's like all subtitled. And I don't have the connection to Lupin the Third when he speaks Japanese and he's like got a more gruff voice at times or a comical thing. I'm used to that. Tony Oliver is his name. That's my Lupin the Third.
Well, so, I'm great friends with Danny of Geekdom 101, who's like the Dragon Ball channel on YouTube. Like he's the guy. Right.
I've been watching his videos lately because I've been watching DragonAll Z videos when I'm not watching.
I'm glad. Like he knows his shit top to bottom, inside and out, and he's also a great guy. Danny's a fantastic guy. But he would slap the taste out of my mouth. He's also a big wrestling fan. You two would probably actually really freaking get along. He would slap the taste out of my mouth like The Rock in the 90s. If I said that I prefer the dubs over the subs, it's because I grew up with the show airing on Toonami, on Cartoon Network. And so I associate immediately Sanj Shamel, Christopher Sabat, these guys with the characters. And I cannot, because of the age that I was growing up, it's a very formative age, I immediately associate those voices with these characters. And if it's somebody else speaking those lines, it's not the character to me. I don't buy it. Dude, and so there are a lot of anime there that, whether it's Dragon Ball, whether it's Gundam, I recently wanted to rewatch a couple of different Gundam series on Crunchyroll because they recently merged or bought out Funimation, whatever it was. And so they got a lot of the series that were Funimation exclusives because I had a Funimation Now account as well. But when they ported them over, they only kept the subs and not the dubs. And so I was like, I want to rewatch the series, but it's not with the voices that I remember.
Exactly.
I can't do it. I can't do it.
I'm even one step further. I don't know if this would ever make a good video, but maybe I can find a way to make it interesting. There's something to be said about the music that they used in the 90s that was associated with anything from Japan. Because there's a lot of crossover. It's just like heavy metal, guitar focused, synthy, like Power Rangers and Dragon Ball Z have a lot of similarities in their music presentation. For me personally, that is one of the draws to that. Like I watched Dragon Ball Z Kai for the sake of brevity, and I have also been watching the Funimation version, which sucks because it's all zoomed in and shit. But I need the Bruce Falconer score. I need next time on Dragon Ball Z. And you know, like I've been doing parodies.
Ball Z. Yeah,
like I've been doing these parody opens for the show, and I'm going to do another one for this week. It might be the last one. But like Dragon Ball Z without the music, I couldn't watch Dragon Ball Z Kai. I had to move the bar every time because I couldn't stand that stupid Dragon Soul song and then the like. That's the one thing I do hate about anime. The theme songs and those really long credit sequences. Like, I don't like most of the music. Like, the Lupin music is awesome. The Cowboy Bebop music is the tits. Like, I love that shit. But, like, the Dragon Soul and all those, like, poppy Japanese songs, they're really grating on my ears, and that usually makes me skip those. So, like, I liked Parasite and something else. And I was like, oh man, wait, not Parasite. Yeah, I guess that was Parasite. Is that Shinichi? The one with the hand that turns into shit? That's Parasite? That was good, but I skipped the intro too. I didn't like the music. Anyway, let's go on. Jack White sends in 2 more. Thank you, Jack. He says, why does nobody remember my world is a story about a boy named Kai who enlists as a soldier for his capital city years after a war between humanity and 4 other races, one of them being demons. And he's keeping an eye on the seals that other races are trapped in that were created by a human hero named Sid, who will lead humanity to victory against the other races. Well, long story short, Kai's out shopping with his childhood friend Jean, and his world gets overwritten, and now he finds himself in a world where a war never ended and humanity didn't win. Jack and the hero Sid doesn't exist at all, so he has to figure out what happened to figure out how to change things back if he can. Now, Jack,
never heard of it.
That would be a great copy for a streaming service. Now, I already took the picture, so I don't really need to take it again. I'm making sure I got it. I might have to bump that one up. Yep. I got it right here. Remember my world. Boom. But I'm going to watch that one sooner than later. I know I got a backlog, but I love the types of stories where history gets rewritten and like people just disappear and you got to figure out what goes on. That's why I like anime. They tell stories that you don't get in other forms of. I like animation too, but you don't get that in a lot of our Western stuff. Like I've been watching some of these DC shows, and you guys have turned me around on those newer DC animated features. I tried to watch Crisis just for the hell of it because I had a couple drinks, and I hated it. The animation was terrible, so I take back my compliments. Like you guys said, it looks good in still images, but not in motion. But that being said, Jack, I've been watching a lot of stuff from Japan, and I will continue to watch it on our build towards Japan, and we'll do more content around that country. But I'm going to watch that one soon. I just watched DBZ where Spopovich beat the shit out of Adele, and it was weird.
I remember that episode. He kicked the shit out of her. I was kind of mad at that time. I didn't even like Videl because she was a twat.
Exactly. And when he
I was like I don't even like Gohan, and I'm mad.
Dude, Goku, Piccolo, and Vegeta are my characters on that show. They're the ones that I will buy their action figures. I don't own any Piccolo or Vegeta toys. I need to get some.
I have a lot of Goku and Vegeta, mostly Super Saiyan 4 statues.
See, I just like them in their base looks, like from earlier appearances. Like Vegeta, I'm torn. He can have his tail. He cannot have his tail. I think
one of Vegeta's best all-time looks was super early DBZ when his armor had the long pauldrons.
Yep. That's the one,
right? And he still had the scouter and everything. Like that look was just so good, so good. It kind of pains me that Akira Toriyama hates this character that he created because he's my second favorite character in the franchise.
Wait, Toriyama hated Vegeta?
Toriyama hates Vegeta. Yeah, he does not like Vegeta. That. Yeah,
I don't know much about Toriyama because full transparency. In 99 is when I was introduced into Dragon Ball Z. It was on Toonami. I caught it during the Frieza saga, and then I would catch it at night. They were replaying the Saiyan saga. So it was like you're watching Goku go down Snake Way for like 6 weeks straight.
Yeah. Well, because they extended that in the anime
Oh, dude.
by a lot. They added a lot of filler to Snake Way in the anime.
So now I don't know if this is how kids feel because they're born in a different world, but like growing up in the 90s, and I'm sure this was like that in the 80s too, because there was Voltron and Macross and other things that were coming from Japan that would hit our shores. But there was like an air of excitement because it was different and hard to get. You know, Dragon Ball Z was pricey to buy. Those toys were hard to find.
The toys were hard to find. If you wanted to get it on VHS or something like that, it was extra expensive comparative to anything else. It was really obnoxious, actually.
Dragon Ball Z tape. Oh, yeah. It was. But that kind of fueled my interest in it because it was like something that was cool and different and obscure and difficult, and I really liked having to stay up to midnight to watch it. I really liked having to go. Like I didn't have cable at the time, and when I got it, I watched it every day. But like I remember going to a friend's house to make sure I saw that Namek saga, and so it lives with me as that memory. I've only read a handful of the manga. I want to go back and watch Dragon Ball and learn more about it. I think Toriyama's art is awesome. Like the fact that the cartoon looks
super
just like
iconic looking. It's super iconic. You can pick out in a Akira Toriyama design out of anything, whether it's Chrono Trigger, Dragon Quest, Dragon Ball, Doctor. Oh my gosh, why am I?
I know the first one before.
Blanking out right now. Doctor.
Not Dr. Giro.
No, not Dr. Giro. Somebody in the chat will remind me. It was on the tip of my tongue, and then Dr. Slump. Thank you. Dr. Slump. Like there are a lot of franchises that he was either the main art director or he was just the artist in general. You can pick his designs out of a lineup of anything so easily. Yeah. Such an iconic art style.
And it's fun to draw. Like I remember guys in high school couldn't draw. Like I would draw always. I've always been like the artist. Haha, me. But there would be guys in class that could just draw Dragon Ball Z. It was like a weird thing. Like they didn't know anything else, but they knew how to make the Dragon Ball Z pictures, and I never understood that. But I finally experimented with it the other day, and I was like, I had a lot of fun.
I saw that piece on both Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. Actually, I saw that piece of Goku you did. That was pretty good.
That I had never drawn Goku. I just was like, I've been watching the show so much, and it's been living in my head. And before I even pulled up reference, I had the shape down because they all have a really wide head. It's really fascinating to look at and break down. And
there's really unique anatomy to Akira Toriyama's designs.
There's so much power, and I think that's what people really want from Dragon Ball Z. It's almost like a show where you like watch these guys charge up. And the animation is so fast-paced and beautiful and detailed. I wish I had experienced more shit like that earlier. Now I'm catching up and having a good time. So
Jack, now you get to enjoy it now, and that's okay.
Yep. I got a big 4K TV. I can watch. Look, it's old animation. They don't really upscale it the way they should, but not everything can be Batman the Animated Series.
That's true. Though Danny of Geekdom 101, he has actual high definition versions of Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, like actual high definition,
not the crappy,
not the crappy like semi pseudo half-ass upscaled ones that you'll see on DVDs currently and stuff.
Like I just don't understand why
these are AI upscaled to where it's actually cleaned up and actually looks like it's high def. That's crazy.
What I like AI for. I know people have opinions like I do about I don't want any real jobs to be taken away from an artist ever. But a company has so much that they're willing to put into a catalog title. And so if something that I love can be upscaled and look amazing through a computer algorithm that no company would pay a person to do, I'm torn in an impasse because I really want the artist to always be hired. But I feel like some things we're never going to get an artist to be hired for that job. So it's almost I don't know how to describe that conundrum.
Yeah,
but
no, I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you.
But they've done it with the old Fleischer Superman cartoon. I love that show. Warner Brothers, I know it's in the public domain, but the Warner Brothers release that was put in the Superman box set that came out a year or two ago on 4K is not even as good as another earlier transfer on DVD. I don't know what they're doing with the show, but somebody on YouTube has used a neural network AI to upscale it to 4K, and it looks fantastic. So that's kind of what I'm like. I love a show called James Bond Jr. They're never going to make anything related to James Bond Jr. ever again.
That show was airing at the same time as like Johnny Quest, wasn't it? Or around the similar time.
You're 100% correct. On Cartoon Network, they did a new action block. I watched the whole documentary on Dragon Ball Z, and they talked about pre-Cartoon Network,
UPN network,
and all that stuff.
The Johnny Quest where he went inside cyberspace was mid '90s, and James Bond Jr. was early '90s. So they were in production at different times. But I think in the late '90s, they were part of a huge entertainment block.
Yep.
That's when I was watching them then. Yeah, because I remember both of them being kind of side by side.
I watched James Bond Jr. It was on here at like cinema. And so I was a little kid, and my mom would get up and tape it for me. So I have a lot of James Bond Jr. on tapes that I would like wake up whenever, and she'd be like, all right, it's ready. And I would watch it and then play with my toys and play the video game.
Between that and like all the Power Rangers toys and stuff she got you, can we all in the chat get a shout out to World Class Mom?
Dude,
can we do that?
Dude, I want the book Christmas '93 to be well read, because it is the story of the Power Rangers Christmas. It's like every 90s kid's comic book. Like that is going to be the one. It's a short one. It's small. It's only 25 pages, but I have the cover mapped out, and it's a fun story. It's a true story, but I think it's something that everybody can relate to. And you don't see a lot of Christmassy comic books, but it's not just a story you can only read at Christmas. So folks, it's going to be fun. We'll talk about that after Wokebusters.
Hell yeah.
There's going to be some, some family nod and love and all stuff. It's a true story that I love to tell. It's like a legend around here. You know how people do the night before Christmas and all this other stuff? We tell the Power Rangers Christmas legend every Christmas, because it's one of those stories you're like,
a Mighty Morphin Christmas.
Dude, yes, I love it. Those toys live right there. They never go away because the story's epic. Now, Enrique Vasquez, thank you. He says, wow, you guys are looking spiffy. Even Script Doctor. He's got the bow tie. I'm jealous.
Well, it's a clip-on.
Xavier to God, thank you very much. Definitively Carol Danvers as Miss Marvel with the Warbird suit, and Billy Batson as Captain Marvel, to me at least. I don't have much of an attachment to Billy Batson Captain Marvel, but I do love that design, the early one that looks like Fred McMurray,
that classic Fawcett Comics
I couldn't think of the name.
Captain Marvel design is pretty iconic. I actually like, and I've gone back and forth on this actually as a comic book fan for several years, and I finally landed on actually liking the name Shazam more than Captain Marvel for him. Just because it feels more thematic, and a lot of it might be because of how I approach comics. For me in comics, I love alliteration. I love stuff that's on the nose. I love the stuff that you look at that and you might laugh because at first you're like, oh, that's silly, but then you're kind of like, oh, all right, like I'm here for it, type of a thing. Like I love that kind of stuff with comic books. I miss that's a feeling, that's a vibe that is missing from comic books and has been for a very long time. And the fact that Billy Batson he utters the words Shazam to transform into this, basically this god, that being the name of the character, for me, that works so much better than Captain Marvel. And that's not to say that I prefer Carol Danvers as Captain Marvel. No, I prefer Marvel as Captain Marvel. But yeah.
But how does he introduce himself without turning back into Billy Batson?
That's true.
How does he introduce himself without turning back into Billy Batson? He's like, hi, I'm Shazam. Oh, I'm a kid now.
Yeah, that's something that could be done in writing. Is it something that's done with intention? Like, is it like is that something like within, to not get on a rabbit trail here, but in the Harry Potter universe, the three unforgivable curses, Imperio, Crucio, and Avada Kedavra, for those three spells to actually work, you have to mean them. There has to be true intent and malice behind them. Intent to harm, intent to manipulate, intent to kill. So if somebody were to explain that in the same way, in same vein as, like, if Billy Batson or the character of Shazam were to just say the word Shazam flippantly, right, and it not have the effect because it's something that needs to actually have power and intention behind the uttering, I'd be okay with that.
that's kind of convoluted because we have 60 years of anytime he says it, that's what happens. Like that's the continuity and canon of the character, right? You are blessed with the power so that when you utter the words, you have access to it. That is as simple as they're going to make it. The moment you start saying intentions, well, then what happens if you go through? Unfortunately, I'm going to cite the Spider-Man 2 thing where he loses his power because he just feels sad, and he can't call upon his magic powers because he doesn't mean it.
That was
That's where you get
something
into
that
those
was drawn
utter
from the comic
utterances.
books to a degree.
But again, it's not. I mean, it's the thing is the only reason they changed it is because they were worried about a confusion lawsuit that could happen when
Sure.
they were going into
I'm
renewal.
completely
And
cognizant
DC
of why they
blinked
did the name
because
change.
Marvel
why they
was
did the
actually
name
doing really
change.
well with the MCU, and they actually had money to fight.
Oh, I'm
even
completely
so.
aware of why they did the name change.
And the fact that they went with Shazam was kind of stupid because technically DC owned the name Captain Thunder, which is an unused character, and that would have worked just as well. They wanted to go that way.
I don't know if it had been as thematic for him to me. I don't actually mind the name. I just don't like it for him, if that makes sense.
He has not earned a place on my shelf yet. I doubt that is a character that will ever be up there. And I didn't even hate the second movie, but I don't know if Shazam, Captain Marvel, whatever you want to call him, I don't think that's going to be like I don't think they'll ever get rid of the book. I just don't think
The
we'll see him.
The second movie
in much
was
stuff.
it was okay. Like it wasn't nearly as good as the first one. The first one had a charm to it that I was like, all right, like this movie was actually kind of fun. The second
I didn't
one,
like it as much as I liked Blue Beetle. And I know Blue Beetle is not looked upon fondly by people.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those movies that I watched and went, I don't get why it's not groundbreaking. It's not something that I'm gonna like buy and watch regularly. I may never watch. Well, I'll watch it again. There was like a little charm to it, and I liked the character. And I'm surprised that movie just like completely went under the radar and it flopped as hard as it did. But
it was a character virtually nobody knew about. Nobody was prepared to support that movie, and so nobody supported that movie, and it flopped.
Nope.
And that's sad because I forget the name of the actor, but like the actor, he's also in Cobra Kai. Like he seemed
Zolo?
like yeah, exactly. Thank you, script.
No problem.
He seemed like he'd be a decent fit for a Jaime, which nobody gave a crap. And that goes back to where these studios are at, thinking that actually this is a whole other problem because Marvel has had this issue recently with trying to push characters nobody gives a crap about just because I've said this 1.5 million times, and I'll probably say it 1.3 million more. They got lucky and had a mega hit with Guardians, right? Guardians, who were at best C-listers when that first movie came out, and James Gunn somehow struck magic, and all of a sudden the Guardians of the Galaxy, who weren't even the original Guardians group, became household names. And they just had this hit on their hands. Like, well, we can make anything work, right? No, you can't. And you have seen that you can't. DC is trying to replicate that. And they were trying to replicate that with Blue Beetle when they haven't even been able to make the Trinity work.
They were trying to replicate that with the first Suicide Squad because the music of Guardians of the Galaxy, it convinced people. I don't know how Warner Brothers actually felt, but like everybody seemed to want to put old music in their shit because Guardians of the Galaxy did it and it was cool and it sold albums.
It worked with Guardians, so there was reason for it thematically.
But that's why I look at the opening to Suicide Squad as kind of a joke because you go Super Freak, Rick James, you got House of the Rising Sun by the Animals, you just Eminem Without Me, like just kept jumping. And it's like, we get it. You want to be Guardians of the Galaxy. You want to have a disparate team of characters that just ties everything together. We can smell a derivative a mile away. Guardians of the Galaxy is
especially a half-assed one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I call BS to David Ayer, who recently said that the studio wanted his Suicide Squad to be like Deadpool, and I'm like, Deadpool came out in 2016 and was filming at the time we were making Suicide Squad, because I worked on Suicide Squad in their art department as part of the props. They wanted to do Guardians of the Galaxy because that came out in 2014. And you could tell with the trailer cut and everything that was going on and the team aspect. But David was doing and saying anything he could, and I understand why, to try and get his version of a still terrible movie released the way that Zack Snyder did.
Yeah, that's
they
the
did
thing.
not go back. They went back for minor reshoots, but unlike Zack Snyder's Justice League, another director did not come in and reshoot that movie, and then that's what we got. It was the same team. It was everybody was the same. I came back and I was barely working for a week on the reshoot part of it, and I never got to see any talent. And in fact, the only talent I saw were stunt doubles through the entirety of shooting that. But he's got his timeline wrong, and and completely doesn't understand the tone. And he also probably never saw Deadpool or Guardians of the Galaxy, because if he did, he would know not to make such a mistake when he's talking and reflecting back on, oh yeah, Suicide Squad. Warner Brothers was really excited with Deadpool, so that's what they wanted to do with it. It's like, dude, Deadpool came out in February. Suicide Squad came out 4 months later. Your reshoots happened at the end of 2015, and editing was locked by December. There's no correlation between that.
Not a chance. Not a freaking chance. That was one of the dangers with the whole Snyder Cut thing, apart from it being 4 hours of having a pineapple kicked up my asshole backwards. Is that, like, all of a sudden that was an excuse, right? Like, oh well, the studio, didn't let me do my thing. It's like, look, this is that's not news. We already knew for years that Sony interfered with Sam Raimi when it came to Spider-Man 3. Like, it's not news that studios will step in, flex, and be like, well, we're the ones funding you, so you're going to do what we say, and we're going to change your thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
We know this. Yeah, this is not news, but that doesn't, you don't automatically get a pass. You don't automatically get an excuse now for that. And not everybody is going to have had like a drastically changed thing. I fully believe if Sam Raimi told me I had a different vision, it had nothing to do with Venom. It was strictly about the story with Sandman, even though like the way that like the story was going to go with like Sandman, that being the whole deal behind Uncle Ben dying, like, okay, that's a bit of a retcon, fine, whatever. If it had been that though, sans all of the Topher Grace, not Eddie Brock, not Venom stuff, like I fully believe that probably would have been a far better movie.
You just picked my number one criticism of the movie breaking. Oh, the Sandman actually did it. Like you take away Spider-Man's journey by making it tie into it. Like Spider-Man 3 has about 12 problems before you get to Venom.
At least.
And that to me is the number one problem, because I don't have to like the villain. I don't have to like every element. I don't even hate the music scene. It's not my favorite. It's a bunch of memes from it. It's funny. But I do absolutely hate that, because you have to kind of watch the other two in a vacuum. You can't watch them all as a trilogy and go, oh, this is satisfying, because it undoes that moment where Spider-Man is, oh, I missed the part where that's my problem, and it builds to the guilt. It makes his entire existence built on the wrong thing to be guilty over, and it takes away the impact of the whole sacrifice and power and responsibility. And I go,
no, that's fair.
What in the goddamn hell? Who thought this was a good idea? All you had to do is make the Sandman the new bad guy in town that was doing crap, and Spider-Man swings in to stop him. That's how it worked.
No, that's entirely fair. I think that is 1000% valid, and I totally understand, and I actually agree with that. If I were to separate that from the story that Sam Raimi was originally trying to tell, this arc of like forgiveness, blah, 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 and I were to separate that out from it, I still prefer that without the Venom stuff, because to do Venom wrong like that for me is a serious offense. Having grown up in the late 80s and 90s. And that's one of those things where I can separate and qualify comic book adaptation live actions in various sects. I can be like, okay, how is this as something that is measured in an objective, like kind of universal stance, right? How can I measure it on the scripting, the pacing, the score, the script, the acting, the performances themselves, right? How's CGI hold up with regards to when it was made, things like that. And then how is it as this adaptation of this thing that I already know and I love? How does it like live up to with respect to that? And the other thing is like, how is it with respect to the story that was actually being told, like trying to be told at least? Can I look at what was being presented to me and take that in isolation, being like, okay, that was the thing that this writer, this director was trying to do. Did they do it well with respect to what their intention was, or did they not? I like to use Aquaman a lot of the time for this example, because Aquaman is a weird movie for me because that's not Arthur Curry. However, there's a lot of stuff in there that's very Aquaman, that's done very well. It's also
Like
a very
water?
fun. Yeah, there's a lot of fun in that movie. I enjoy the crap out of that movie, sans Amber
Dude,
Heard. But that's not
she enjoyed the
Aquaman.
crap
That's
out of
not
a lot of-
Arthur Curry.
Look, I'll save it. I didn't dislike Aquaman at all. Is it my favorite movie ever? Hell no.
Oh,
It
absolutely
falls
not.
well
Not
below
even
the trailer.
remotely close.
No, but Jason Momoa is an actor that I find likable. The end in The Fall Guy where he replaces Aaron Taylor Johnson was the funniest part of the movie to me. Outside, well,
Oh, spoilers.
it's not even a. You're never.
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
But, like,
I
the
don't
movie-
know when I'm gonna get around to watching it. It's fine.
The movie is like legitimately funny at times.
And I'll
I
forget.
know I didn't give it a good score, folks. I stand by what I said at the time. I found it frustrating in moments, but there are like really funny moments as well. And the Jason Momoa cameo at the end is one of the funniest because this fake movie they're making is such bullshit. But once Jason Momoa takes on the role, it works. Because when Aaron Taylor Johnson's doing it, it's just really hokey and stupid. And then Jason Momoa's doing the same shit, and you're like, I would actually watch this fucking movie. And so I get it. It's a commentary on this and that. It's funny though. And I really did like that. And Jason Momoa is I gotta watch
Jason
Dune
Momoa was
now.
a fun actor.
He's in Dune, right? The new one? Or no? This
I don't
yeah,
know.
well, he
I haven't
wasn't in
seen
part two,
either
he
of
was
the
in
new Dune movies.
He was in Dune 1. He's technically not in Dune 2.
Well, I'm gonna watch both of them soon now that they're both on HBO Max, or excuse me, Max. I'm gonna veg out and watch Dune and Dune 2 back to back, and I will do a small little response, maybe on a stream or a Twitter hangout or something. I'd let you guys know what I think. I won't make a full video out of Dune because I'm not an expert, but I'm excited to finally see the whole picture.
It strays from the book in part 2 significantly.
My dad has been trying to get me to read the Dune books. I don't know, since I was like 12 years old.
I like science fiction, but the science fiction I like to read, at least in text, is like a Bradbury, something that's more of like a
Something that's more character driven, because Dune,
Yeah.
the way it's written, is very technical.
Now, our friend Taylor Swift, greater than Disney, Star Wars, and MCU, and Doctor Who, says, waited till my theater had Swift's merchandise on massive discount, free soda and popcorn in it too, to get watched Godzilla X Kong with episode 1 and episode 1 with her merch.
Wait, you
gotta
watched
ask.
Godzilla X Kong and Phantom Menace with Taylor Swift merch?
Yeah, because I'm assuming
What
that
the hell is wrong with you?
probably got it because it was one of those, hey, the theater's discounting it and you get free refills all the time. I'd do the same thing for free refills. You might see me show up to, I don't have one, but like, I don't know, a local Regal or something with that. I would do that. There's no shame. I'd put a WCBS sticker over the front where it said whatever, and I would get my free refill every week.
I'll sooner pay an extra $20 for the popcorn for Godzilla.
I
I'm good.
like money and I don't like to burn it.
I do
so
too.
I would just spend the money to. There's no shit involved with taking a popcorn bucket to get refills. Like, I don't care what it said. It could be like I almost said it could be a Zack Snyder movie, and there are lines you don't cross, folks. So I'm not going to say that. I have standards. I won't go there. But Taylor Swift, what I wanted to ask you is, how was it seeing the Darth Maul fight on the big screen again? I said in the little Phantom Menace documentary I did, I didn't go back and see the 25th anniversary, but I went back to see the 3D release in 2011. And even though I don't love that movie, and nostalgia does not change my opinion, I tried. I like it a little more because I like the Clone Wars and I get the big picture now. That being said, seeing that fight scene on the big screen, like that is that movie. And if you weren't there for it, man, that summer they would play that song on the radio. It was in all the commercials. You knew that song before you knew the movie. It was cool. I missed that. Like everyone that goes, oh man, The Force Awakens was the biggest one. No, 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 no. The Phantom Menace was bigger. It was the first time Star Wars was coming back. That shit was talked about for years, and it stuck around for years. It may have the opinion of, not being a great thing, but even though it was whatever, people still talked about it. It was still there. It still, sold well on home video and kept Star Wars around. Star Wars didn't really go away back then. They just put out games and books and shit like that.
There were a lot of games, books, comics, toys.
Oh, yeah.
All sorts of stuff that came out that just weren't movies.
And it was fun, man. I didn't like it, episode 1, so I took a break from Star Wars. But anything that they would do with original trilogy characters, I would check out. Like the Yoda stories on Game Boy Color or like Rogue Squadron. Dude, I remember getting a GameCube. I waited for a birthday present that year. I said, Mom, I got to have a GameCube. I got to get Super Smash Brothers. And she's like, yeah, no problem. So my mom's cool. Anyway, long story short.
World-class mom.
World-class. But world-class grandma, too. My grandma was like a super religious lady. She left church early to make sure we got a GameCube. Like, that was awesome on grandma's part. So anyway, I get there. Super Smash Brothers had been pushed back, but Star Wars was in my hand. And I didn't care that episode 1 sucked. I didn't care about not liking Jar Jar Binks. I could fly the X-Wing as Luke Skywalker, and I was back. And that game was the tits. It still is one of the best Star Wars games. And Disney, Lucasfilm, whoever you are out there with the license, if you're going to keep re-releasing these old Star Wars games, give us a 4K remaster of Rogue Squadron. I mean, I would like if you redid all the graphics in modern style with the same classic gameplay. I'd love that. But if you could just upscale it and re-release it, it was the best. Like, Rogue Squadron 2 is the best Star Wars game. Give us more, please. I never not wanted to play it. If I had my Wii over here, I'd play it right now. It's that good. Now, Retromeister, thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for your message, and thank you for buying Stealing Solo. I saw your email address. I would pay for a ticket for Furiosa just to watch the Beetlejuice 2 trailer and hear the audience's reaction to it. I believe the movie itself will be making 5 to 6 mil and maybe a double feature event. Ooh. Script, what do you say about that?
Yeah, I don't know. It's trying to gauge where is the audience at right now. And I don't know. I mean, a bunch of the people I watched Beetlejuice when I was a kid, and the reason I got to see it is because I had already learned by that point that movies were fake. So I wasn't scared by the gore and the craziness, like, Gina Davis ripping off her face. That's kind of a gruesome scene, but for me as a kid, I'm like, oh yeah, that's some good makeup effects. The kids that did know Beetlejuice probably saw the cartoon, then the movie first, because the cartoon series ran for 2 seasons. It was pretty popular. They're adults now, and then the original adults that like Beetlejuice are grandparent age. You'll probably get them dragging their kids to it, but I don't know if it's going to have staying power. Like, that's the thing. The only way movies make money is if you have to go back and see it again. And how many movies have been released in the last decade that make people want to go back and see it again?
I don't think I've seen a single movie twice in theaters since 2014. I thought I saw Avengers Infinity War twice, but I don't remember. If I did, that's like the only movie I saw twice in theaters. I think maybe Civil War. I'm sorry. I'm with you though. I never was a theatrical reviewing kind of guy. Like, I liked the Avengers enough to see it 4 times, and I had seen Phantom Menace twice because I went to like a second run theater to see it. I saw Revenge of the Sith twice because I saw it on 2 continents, and saw Spider-Man multiple times and Spider-Man 3 multiple times because it's Spider-Man. But like, overall, I'm a big supporter of seeing it opening weekend. If I have other people to go with, cool. If not, maybe think about it, but it's a home video buy usually. And that's kind of how I like to gauge it. I don't like going to see it multiple times because the awe factor isn't there anymore. And then the anticipation to own the thing really makes me then want to watch it again and again and again if I like it. So what do you guys think though, where something like a Beetlejuice, like, I don't think anything nostalgic really like is going to get people to keep going back, because it's a finite window of people that are going to be nostalgic for Beetlejuice, and it's a finite window of people that like Jenna Ortega, and it's a window of people who are going to care. I mean, people aren't going to see Mad Max because it doesn't have a Mad Max movie, or Mad Max movie because he's not in it. That's one thing. This has everything but Otho, and well, it doesn't have the Maitlands either.
And well, the thing is, and to be fair, Furiosa should not have been marketed as a Mad Max style movie. It should have been said in the Mad Max universe, here's Furiosa, because the moment you throw in a Mad Max story on our marketing campaign, it's basically like saying a Star Wars story for all the Disney Plus shows. But it's not the same. When the title of Mad Max, and there's a lot of people that are contest against this, but they're wrong, because George Miller said this way back when he did Road Warrior, is that Mad Max is not one person. He is just it's a story of the villages, of the places somebody goes to that has changed their lives for the better, and they're retelling it now that society has rebuilt itself after the fact, decades later. Like the little kid with the boomerang in Road Warrior, he is telling the story as an old man in voiceover. What it is, it's just a legend of some guy who's named Max, who happens to go from place to place to help these towns out, or because he's looking for gas or something. And then there's these fantastical stories and adventures, and they get grandiose with every single telling. Whether or not it's the actual same character, we don't know, because it's all fiction anyways. But the people that are telling the stories are saying, yes, it's the same guy, because they're making a legend out of him. They didn't stick to that in the marketing press campaign for Furiosa. They're like, no, this is her story now. We're going to focus on her story, her world, her village, and maybe we'll do a nod to Mad Max, but we are not confident enough in this movie to let it stand on its own, because Fury Road did okay. It had some contentions to it. I thought the story was
380 million off of a 150 or so million dollar budget. So it made like a little bit of money.
Made a bit, but it's also at a time when it's like, marketing was starting to get really expensive when it came out.
Marketing wasn't good point. Marketing wasn't as expensive then as it is now, but it still wouldn't have resulted in like gangbusters in terms of net profit.
And the reason it made some of the money it did is because it's the first Mad Max movie that doesn't have Mel Gibson in it. So people are like, oh, can this Jai Courtney guy, or whatever his name was? No, not Jai Courtney. The other guy who's like him but can act a bit better. Whatever his name is. Who's clearly not household enough for me. He was kind of whatever, because they decided, okay, we're gonna make this call it Furiosa, a Mad Max story. Just call it Furiosa, and then let people come to the conclusion. Oh yeah, it's set in one of the Mad Max worlds that we saw. Okay, cool, great. That's your strange attractor that gets people who see the movie just out of curiosity to connect with other people and say, you got to go see this movie, because it takes place in the Mad Max universe, or a Mad Max universe, and it's good, bad, whatever you want to say it, but don't let the poster misrepresent it, because the moment you throw that marquee on there, that a Mad Max story, and people are watching it like, where's Max? It's Furiosa, it's Chris Hemsworth. Where's Max? His poster said Mad Max story. I don't see Max here. And the irony is that the only Mad Max story that exists is the original Mad Max, because Road Warrior is not really about Mad Max. He's just there. It's about the village and getting away from Homunculus. And then Beyond Thunderdome isn't about Thunderdome. It's about the kids in that valley that are surviving, and Max is just kind of there trying to help them out. And Fury Road isn't really about Mad Max either. It's about, that's just kind of how it works out. He's this dude, and every generation, every new movie, the world that is the Fallout world is crazier and crazier than the previous one, and I love that aspect of it. But yeah, it's part marketing, part the fact that George Miller just let the budget run away with him, because he's making the mistake that all of Hollywood's been making for the last decade, which is spend more to try and make more, when really you just have to spend wisely to make more. And I think that's what hurt this the most, because it's like edging out with Garfield, the animated movie, which is the first Garfield film that doesn't have a Chris Pratt as the voice of Garfield, which doesn't fit at all. Yes, Lorenzo Music has passed away. Bill Murray doesn't want to do it anymore, because he was in on the joke of Lorenzo Music doing his character in cartoon, him doing Garfield, Lorenzo's cartoon character. But they couldn't find a sound alike. There's plenty of people out there. I know a couple of character actors that can do Garfield's original voice. but instead you got the Chris Pratt high energy voice for Garfield, who's supposed to be a cat that hates Mondays and finds it too difficult to even speak, however he does. That's pretty sad. And what's also kind of sad is that just a couple weeks ago you had Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes come out, and it's already broke 300 million worldwide on a 160 budget. So it's getting closer and closer to reaching that profit range. We're going all over the place here because we have a crazy set of, I like the fact that we have a diverse set of genre that's coming up. We have a horror comedy with Beetlejuice. You got
I'll tell you what I like.
Crazy action with Furiosa.
I like seeing, and as much as of a superhero film fan as I am, or at least was, when we had good ones, or at least passable ones, I love seeing the success of other films like Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, like Godzilla X Kong. I want to see other films take over that space in terms of all right, we've moved past where the superhero films were setting the bar, right? In terms of those were what the general audiences were all here for. All right, fine. All right, let's move to something else. What's the new thing? I like seeing other things see success, have their time in the limelight. I would love for superhero films to be good again. I would really love that because I like superheroes. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. But seeing big monster films and the Planet of the Apes films do well, that makes me happy. I'd like to see more movies do that.
Science fiction's hot right now, man. There's a universal appeal that's in this. We're living in a weird world right now, and these stories tell. Sci-fi always does well during interesting political times.
I have to get caught up. I refuse to watch Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes until I get caught up on the rest of the franchise. I've seen the original, or rather, what was it? The one that came out in
Rise of the Planet
not the original, not the original. The one that came out in the was it the 90s or early 2000s?
Are you talking? Okay, so there's Planet of the Apes, the Tim Burton one from 2001, which is absolute shit.
Then there's Planet of the Apes from 1968 or 67,
and that's a great movie.
Okay, I've seen that one. I don't know if Tim Burton made the other one, but I've seen the other one.
You don't watch it ever. It's
don't watch
so
the Mark
bad.
Wahlberg, Tim Burton.
I remember the trailers for it, but I haven't seen the movie. I've seen the 60s one. I've seen of this new swath of Planet of the Apes films. I've seen the first one, the one that had James Franco in it. I haven't caught up and seen any of the other ones.
And this movie isn't for you at all because
most of my friends have said that the other ones are solid at the very least, and I'm like, okay, eventually I'll get around to watching them.
Dude,
I refuse to watch the new one until I've seen the other ones.
You can't because you will not understand it. You'll get
no, that's fine. I've seen the trailer. I was like, that looks really cool. I need to get caught up so I can watch this one.
Here's the thing. Solid at best is almost not fair to those movies. That trilogy is awesome. It really was well done. Each one built upon the themes of the previous film. And it even had a tragedy or a tragic element to it that is so... It's often done, but poorly. This thing, you really felt like there was going to be unity and harmony at one point between apes and humanity, and then it was fucking destroyed. And you're like, oh no, and then you just know we're going because here's the thing, we have to eventually get to the first film. It's a loop that we're watching. We're watching time go because you watched the James Franco when they mentioned that the astronauts had left the planet or whatever, they went missing. So that is already referenced. This is all going to build back to that. So where we're going. And it's an interesting way to tell a story because, are you watching a sequel or are you watching a prequel? You really are watching both at the same time.
Right, because it's written in a way, as I understand, that kind of makes it so it ties into the original, where it all kind of circles back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is exactly what happens.
That's super interesting to me.
And it's so well done because it's there are little elements in them all that build to what we're going to get to with Dr. Zaius and everything. But it's such a small element that it'll make up a moment in each one, and you're like, oh. So if you know. Planet of the Apes is not a favorite franchise of mine, but it's one I've seen a lot of, and I own them on disc. I really do like this new trilogy, and I like to go see science fiction right now or monster movies or anything like that because you get streaming content and it's a lot of the same crap. And because of the budgets, you may not always get the best level of effects. And also, too, these effects are meant to be seen on a big screen. I may have a 65-inch TV, but it's not a movie theater screen. It's not, going into the local Dolby theater and watching.
You don't have an at-home IMAX, Jeff? I thought you were a movie fan.
I am, and after the success of Wokebusters, I'm going to buy a home, and I'm going to build a trench and personally put in an IMAX theater, an OmniMax, if you will. I want the dome.
So what are we watching first in IMAX?
Well, I do normally break in every new television with watching or a viewing of GoldenEye. That is my tradition every time.
I'm good with it.
It's the first movie I watch on a new device. So
I'm good with it.
We'll watch GoldenEye, and then we're going to be amped up for more. So we'll watch GoldenEye and drink. Then we'll start to watch Tomorrow Never Dies, and then we'll be like, let's go get something to eat. And then we'll do some shit, and then we'll go back and probably play video games on the thing for a couple hours. So
I'm good with it.
Practice your GoldenEye, because we're going to play GoldenEye.
Okay. I will get my ass kicked on GoldenEye, but
I want
that's
the
fine.
hand
I will
in
still
GoldenEye
practice.
to be the size of a small car. I just want my
as long as we're
screen-
not doing slappers only, man.
No, I'll tell you what we're playing. We are playing License to Kill, pistols only, which means one-shot kills, no machine guns, no spray and pray. You need to know your maps, because I know how to read the map. I don't need to screen watch. I can look at the map where you are, and I know how the more transparent the dot, the level you're on. So if we're in the facility and you're above me, there's one place you can be above me, and that's in the bathroom. And if I get there before you've left the bathroom, there's only one way out of that vent. And if you don't have a weapon, which you don't because you don't spawn with one, you are fucked. So don't challenge me, Andrew. I'm gonna beat you in that game.
You will. I'm telling you right now. I promise you. I will put money on it. You will beat me at GoldenEye 007 and 64.
There is no skill that is, I can't make money from this, but I have that dumb talent. But folks, I am practicing because I've heard rumblings that there will be more competitive WWE 2K tournaments with money involved, and I'm good at that game. And I've been playing them since the first. Technically, I've been playing since WWF Attitude. My point is, if there's money to be made, this guy right here is like a couple practices away from getting there. So if there ever is going to be a tournament, we'll do like a Twitch thing where I'm going to pull a Rocky style training montage where I play that game, and I have a system on how to train myself too. It's eventually to become Goku level, where you fight on Legendary and you fight 5 guys at once, all against you, and know how to just be like Neo and stop everything. That is how you train to get good at that game. And so I haven't played in a couple of years, and I'm getting myself there. It's a lot of fun. Lord of Opossums, thank you very much. I love your videos. Well, thank you very much. I enjoy making them greatly. Folks, thank you for supporting today's one very much. Keep on watching, folks. We're going to keep on writing them, keep on making them the way you like them. So join us tomorrow. We're going to be talking about, I think, how Carrie Fisher was fat shamed. That sounds like an interesting video to talk about. So join us. It'll be an interesting topic. But I know no one's really interested in watching The Acolyte, so I'm going to review it differently this time. I'm going to kind of give you a synopsis, write it out, make it a little more visual in that regard. But I am going to come back each and every week and review the show, and I'm going to make it in a way that you don't have to watch it. You can stay aware of what is in it, the messaging, anything like that. We're going to cover it.
Thank God, because it would probably look bad if I hung myself live on air.
Yeah, I love you too much. Please don't, man. I would be heartbroken. All right? Don't do
I
it.
appreciate that.
Lord of Opossums, thank you very much for gifting 5 World-Class Bullshitters members. Folks, join our membership program. I am working behind the scenes to make more stuff and better stuff all the time. So I'm working on getting you guys some new behind-the-scenes stuff and some new stuff for the membership program. But thank you to everybody who supports us all the time here on the channel. We appreciate you guys. Jack White, thank you very much. The second series, Why Does Nobody Remember My World, doesn't start airing until July. You can find the manga for it online. Well, then I'm going to take that into note because I'm going to read it. I really want to read that story. I've been into time travels and time loops and all that kind of time travel stories, and loops and stuff like that. Trunks was fascinating the entire time in DBZ's rewatch. Oh, yeah,
Future Trunks is my favorite character in Dragon Ball.
He's cool, man. As a kid, the one problem I had was I really like the main character of shows. If I like the show, I really get into the character. I want a T-shirt, an action figure, a poster, games, all that stuff that feature them. Dragon Ball Z was such a cock tease because I wanted to watch Goku do stuff, and he was either dead or on his way to do stuff. And it's like, if you didn't catch the Goku episodes, like I remember missing something after he beat Frieza, and then all of a sudden he's just laid up on a bed. And I'm like, man, what's going on with Goku?
When he was suffering from the heart disease. Yeah.
Yeah, and all that other crap later on. Like, they never really give you the character. And maybe that's what makes him cool, because you're always wanting more, but he's not really tangible after a certain point. Maybe, I don't know. But now I'm watching it, and I like so many of the characters. Even Krillin's interesting to me. So, yeah.
Krillin has some interesting stuff.
Yeah, I really like, I guess, Eastern storytelling, how they use like classic storytelling tropes in like modern ways that really work. In Dragon Ball, I don't know how to describe it right now. Let me write my thoughts down. But I really like the series, especially the Saiyan Saga. That is the best. Xavier to God, thank you. Toriyama didn't want to bring Prince Vegeta back after Lord Frieza killed him. He was brought back because he was popular and Toriyama could work with him.
Yeah,
so
Toriyama does not like Vegeta, actually, at all.
So Xavier to God, I am very fascinated the way that manga is created, because it's different than it is an American comic book. The paid, was it weekly shonen in books? So you'll get a weekly chapter in a story every week. The feedback time, the turnaround time on that is fascinating to me, because normally a comic book is 3 months out, and you in America, and you have, longer stories, and they're done monthly and this and that. So you have longer times to get like audience feedback actually printed on the page. And so like Vegeta's only dead for a handful of episodes and then gets switched back with the Dragon Balls. So I just could only imagine like what, after he killed him, what the conversation was, how quickly to bring him back. Like, I don't know. I'm sure I could find the information online, but I just find the production of that show as fascinating as watching it, because it's so popular and they have to do so much to produce it. It just goes to show you that guy's work reached a lot of people. And, I can't think of many people that really top that.
It's interesting because think back to the time when Dragon Ball Z was actually airing regularly, like freshly airing, like not reruns, freshly airing in terms
like
of the
89
anime.
to 95.
Yeah, and freshly in terms of it's chapters being released and things like that. Like, that's in that era, we didn't have social media. So in very much the same vein as when DC presented the idea to fans of their vote for whether or not Jason Todd was going to live or die in Death of the Family, it was all a matter, like, the only real gauge you had, aside from like whatever tracking was available in terms of like readership, in terms of like viewership, was like write-ins, like physical write-ins, fans writing in physically on paper, mailing that in as to whether or not they liked the character or didn't. And so that popularity for Vegeta was organic. That's not something that was like, well, it's this little cross section of Twitter or something like that, or cross section of some other social media platform, because it takes effort. Whereas social media is a zero effort platform. It's a zero effort thing, really, for the most part. I say that as a social media manager, okay, for both a business and an individual. Like, it is a zero effort platform comparative to the effort that is requisite for like physically writing in and then mailing in, stamping, sending off through the post office into whatever business and saying, hey, like, this is a character that I like. If they even have like some sort of a public mailroom, right? And that's also requisite on them. That's assuming that they have somebody that actually reads those, right? That reads letters from the fans, type of a thing. That's something that Marvel and DC Comics used to do a lot a couple of decades ago. Not so much now, clearly. Otherwise, we wouldn't have the stories that we do.
What stories? They're just kind of like boring. They stand around and do dumb shit.
It's just trash now.
I read this Fantastic Four issue recently where the Thing goes back in time to like this. They get stuck on a time loop in this like Raced City or some shit. Like, I'm like, all right, let's finish the story so I can try to decide if I'm going to give the Fantastic Four one more chance before this movie comes out. Like, I have the most tumultuous relationship with that comic book series. I've tried so many times. I would watch the cartoon as a kid, and it was lesser than the other shows. When the movies came out, I would see them right away. I tried to get in the Fantastic Four so much because I want to get into all the classic Marvel. Spider-Man, love it. Thor, I actually like Thor way more than I talk about. Iron Man, all of that stuff. Cap, big Captain America fan, especially when it's inked by Sheik Stone. But just, oh my God, I've tried the Fantastic Four, I swear, a half dozen times. And I mean, really, like to the point where I'm going to buy like John Byrne reprints. They never do it for me, man. Even the new stuff. I don't get it. I guess I have to quit and give up. So, folks, I don't know what to say about the movie. I guess I'll talk about it when it comes out. Lester San Jose, the Skeptic Tank, thank you very much for being a member for 14 months. That's the number, right? Anyway, DBZ Kai is also not as filtered as what was shown earlier in the day, unless it was DBZ specific to the Cartoon Network Midnight Run. It had blood and language, and it was more free. Yeah, Kai is brutal, man. Like, now here's a weird thing, though. They cut out Frieza's death, like, post-gore stuff. Like, they show him get cut, they have the blood, but they don't do, like, the and all that stuff, and the crawling around, and Goku giving him the power back, and all that other, like, that's gone. Like, it just fades away to the future. No Goku trying to escape on the ship, nothing. And I'm like, hold on a second. I maybe have watched this once 25 years ago, but I remembered this. This was burned into my brain as a kid because it was cool. Like, you got to remember, folks, anime was around, but it like 99, like 98, 99, it really started to take off. You already had Sailor Moon on TV for a little bit, and people knew it. But like Pokemon got big, like really, really big. And Dragon Ball Z was like the slightly cooler, edgier version. Like, some kids liked Pokemon, and everybody kind of liked Pokemon. It was happy and fun and cool. But then, like, Dragon Ball Z got real popular real quick, and it was violent and dark and edgy, and that was like the like next level to get into this shit. And Dragon Ball Z really was much cooler than Pokemon. And I go back and I go, Pokemon is okay, but this shit is awesome. And that's why it was burned in my brain, because it was like really important and really cool stuff I had never seen before. Look at me as an artist. You think I'm going to be influenced by that stuff? Of course I am. But Lester, I'm digging like the violence. Like I said, watching Vidal get beat up by Spopovich was hard. He beat the hell out of her for so long. I'm like, ooh. I watched that last night before bed, and I'm like, ouch, man. Just stop. Jack White, thank you very much. Jeff, I just sent you an email with links to trailers for the 2 series I recommended to you. Well, I will tell the guys. I will send them the picture right now, Jack, along with the recommendations, because I'll do a twofer, and I will get them to send me those. Jack also says another series to check out at Rurouni Kenshin, the original manga, and the new anime adaptation from 2023, and the second season of it starts airing in October. I know that name. I am aware of Rurouni Kenshin. Pretty sure a guy in my dorm back in college. Oh, yeah, I guess.
Also pretty sure he's recommended that one to us at least once before.
I will watch it, Jack. Having Crunchyroll and having this new interest in stuff, I'm into it, man. I'm having a good time. I want to find a way to talk about it on the channel to have fun with you guys too. I want to do crossovers with some YouTube channels that cover anime, because I want to have a conversation with somebody who's an expert on something to teach me some stuff and then help me find something that'll be close to that.
I should try and get you in contact with Danny.
I would love
You've been
to.
watching so much Dragon Ball lately.
Oh my God, like that's a daily thing. The only thing I have to do is turn off the sound, think of the Dragon Ball Z theme in my head, and then watch the episodes. I have to every time. Thank you, Jack. Xavier to God says Krillin got the 2 hottest women in the franchise. Android 18, and who else did Krillin get? Was he with Bulma? I don't know. Was he with Bulma ever?
No.
Yamcha.
No, Yamcha was with Bulma initially.
He was with
Then
the
he
other
lost her.
blue-haired girl who always wore the yellow swimsuit. I can't remember her name.
Marin.
Marin. There we go.
Yeah. I think it was Marin.
Thanks, folks. I was just like, I was drawing a blank. Like I said, I'm really only...
People in the chat are saying Marin. Yeah.
Yeah, Marin and the Garlic Jr. saga. See, Kai doesn't have the Garlic Jr. saga because that's all filler. So that's just gone. I want to get all.
Doesn't
the
Kai
movies.
just jump from Frieza to Android?
Yes, like
Yeah, that's weird for me.
Frieza dies.
Because I
the
own the
midpoint.
box sets of all of the uncut dubs anyway, in terms of the Funimation uncut dubs. And so yeah, it has all the filler, whether you love it or hate it. A lot of people hate it. So it includes the Garlic Jr. saga.
Yeah, just like Kabuto Studios Company Limited Incorporated LLC said, it jumps from Goku in space to Trunks on Earth like instantly. You're just like,
Yep.
what?
Well, that's
Like,
my buddy Spencer. He's the editor in chief over at Bounding Into Comics. Actually,
Oh, what's up, man? I like the Kai edits. I like the manga. I've been reading the color versions of the Namek saga. It's cool. I'm watching reading the fight between Vegeta and the purple dude. Sorry, I don't remember the name. It's late. I'm tired, and we're running long. Folks, the YouTube troubles. I just wanted to tell you, folks, just help us out by checking out the content, spreading the word. I've been talking to YouTube about a couple things, and I have good news. We don't have to change the name. We don't have to do anything silly like that. But we've noticed a change in things, and we're working on stuff to fix that and get things rolling, because we want to reach the gold play button. I am not sitting around waiting. Remember, folks, we want the gold sucker. Hulk Hogan, we're not going to say the rest because I don't want to get canceled on here. But I have what do you guys want to say real quick? Have you guys heard about the Smash JT Kotaku Detected website? Have you guys heard about this story?
No, sorry.
very, very briefly. Very briefly.
So what's going on is, obviously the culture war reaches TV shows, games, movies, but the gaming element of it is always the first of the new change and the most vicious, in my opinion, because it's the newest front. There's a lot of anonymity beyond whatever, and gaming has such a broad range and such a broad reach today that it really attracts people from all over who may have, similar opinions, and certain topics will take off and stuff like that. So anyway, there is a list out there that is talking about, it just indexes the people who have worked at Kotaku, because Kotaku is a very slanted video game website. It is opinion-based direct. It is political leaning to one way. It is very much if there is a butthole of the internet, Kotaku is right there. It is one of the most useless
they're all up in there, more accurately.
Yeah, they're all up in it, and they're terrible. And the problem with them is they represent the problem that I see in modern gaming, and that is that games and certain types of entertainment that needs a positive critical score to sell and win metrics, because we know that these games, they have bonuses written into contracts. You get an 88% on Rotten or Metacritic, you get X amount of dollars. Games are created for that audience, and then that audience has to be built by these gaming journalists, these people that basically can't play games, so they make gaming easier. They can't figure out shit, or they only like one side of the aisle politically, so they only make games that appeal to that, or they alter Grand Theft Auto to appease whatever. That kind of stuff starts at Kotaku. So there's this list out there that was documenting the Kotaku people who wrote the article, have they worked for Kotaku, and the website got shut down. So we're kind of following this story about that right now. That Park Place has an article about it, and that's what we were going to talk about tonight. That was a summary of the situation. So, yes, Kevin 6, it's the taint. It's the taint.
Makes sense.
Now, that's kind of the gist of the story. That's the full thing so far. So the website is down currently. It may be brought back. We will let you know. I'm sure we'll talk about it when I'm on the side scrollers this week on Thursday. So join me there. Folks, tomorrow I will launch the Wokebusters Kickstarter rolling, and then we're going to start building it out and doing a lot of promotion. You're going to see us everywhere. We'll be talking about the stuff. We'll be talking about the launch over on the podcast. You can ask me about it. We'll talk about the stuff. There's really not a bunch to talk about in terms of the updates of the book, because it's done, but I'll have a ton of stuff to talk about in terms of production, the behind the scenes, everything you want to know about Wokebusters. We're going to help it pass all these big goals. And I also am doing a thing where, you know how we have, like with Stealing Solo, you reach, X amount of books, you get a magnet or whatever. We're going to do stuff where every 100 copies, not 100 backers. So, for example, if you buy, if enough people buy the multi-packs and it sells this many, we're just going to add a new sticker of the Wokebusters. And if we can get through all the stickers, I got a cardboard backdrop that's going to be the city of Portland under attack from the giant blue monster, and you'll be able to put some stickers and have fun. It won't be, official color forms or anything like that, but it will be fun. I want to add something, an extra element for you guys. And
I'm
there
fine
are
with Portland getting lit up. I just want to put that out there. As somebody who used to live in the Pacific Northwest,
well, you'll get
I
lit up.
support this.
So, guys, anything else you want to say before we go? Because I am, that's Thursday, Mr. Ninja Julian. I will be on there on Thursday, so the 30th.
I'm excited. What time is that Side Scrollers podcast, Jeff?
Noon, I believe.
All right, guys, make sure if Side Scrollers and Craig are over there already have that stream scheduled on their YouTube channel, make sure you hit the notification button so that you get notified when they're live with Jeff. Tomorrow, Wokebusters, guys. Get amped, get hyped, get excited. You should be hauntingly enthusiastic for this book. I am. I'm ready for it. I'm going to be one of the first in line. I'm here for it.
Thank you.
And I hope you guys shout it out over at the Side Scrollers podcast as well.
So, folks, find me there, Script Doctor. Now, they can find you here on YouTube, but you have a wonderful Patreon that offers all kinds of cool bonus stuff, correct?
Yes, I do. Not only does it give you advanced insights onto my weekly show, Scripts on Saturdays, but every once in a while, I get to share reviews, screenplay reviews, film, television reviews, commentary on the industry and whatnot. In fact, tomorrow I'm going to be on Film Threat with Alan Ng to discuss some box office information as well. So be on the lookout for that show. I think it's tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific.
Cool. I'll check it out.
Guys, Script is the guy who knows what he's talking about. He's been in this industry, been in this business for a long time. Consider checking out that Patreon of his. You get insight there that you will not find virtually anywhere.
You gotta
else.
also listen to the Spider-Man video we made. It's a lot of fun. And
check out the video he did with Jeff. Absolutely.
There's not a lot of people that can get to talk about Ditko Spider-Man. I don't get to talk about it with. It's very rare. Like the comic book guy I used to talk to, he died during COVID. I found out. Sad. So, yeah, he wasn't that much. He was like older. He was like slightly younger than my mom, but like not that old. Nice guy, Kind of sad he passed away. Well, very sad actually, but you know what I'm saying. I don't have any comic book fans to geek out over the old stuff. I find that the guys in the Facebook groups are positive enough, but they don't have open opinions about stuff. It's like, if you don't like this character drawn by this guy, by this inker, it's like, I like this other
one of
inker.
those. Yeah, right.
It's like, I get
everybody's
it,
got a preference.
Yeah,
and that's okay.
Too. I like John Romita inked by Jim Mooney. Those are the best looking Spider-Man books. I have a strong opinion. Steranko, he's the man though. I gotta, yeah. Jeff put out a short while he's streaming. Who?
Huh?
I don't understand.
Oh! If you're seeing shorts pop up while we're streaming, I have Nick putting out stuff too. Remember, folks.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So
okay,
I did put out a short. It was a short version of the Furiosa video, which is moving well. So, folks, we are going to give you some more of those to give you a teaser for some stuff too, so you can get excited. But like I said, folks, join us tomorrow for the video. Join us for the Acolyte. I guess it's next week. Like I said, I'm going to produce videos that you'll be able to watch, be informed by the topic, and not have to watch the show. So you don't have to give Disney Star Wars your money. You can stay abreast of the situation and be informed so you can form your own opinion on the show through us. Because, we're here to do that kind of stuff and a whole lot more. So join us then, folks, and join us for some of our new videos. Also, too, check out the Star Wars video that I put out about the Phantom Menace anniversary. It's a fully produced 20-minute documentary, fully edited clips, all that great stuff. Had to put a filter over it just for YouTube copyright, working a way around that. And wanted to let you guys know it was such a fun experience. I'm going to do more no matter what, a couple at least. And the next one's going to be on Alita Battle Angel because I really enjoyed that movie. I really like what it was, and I want to learn more about the character and the creator and all of this stuff. So I'm going to use, that's my favorite thing about YouTube is like doing research. I sound like a nerd, but it's like the fun
I still
part.
need that movie on 4K.
Let me see how many I got. I still got to send one out to a listener. I never got the email from Nick, so I apologize, but you know, every book gets shipped out within a couple days, so there you go. But I'll get your copy of the movie sent out to you. But if I have bonus ones laying around, I'll send you one, because one of our listeners to the P.O. Box, and we're going to get it, don't worry, we're going to get a new one. Somebody sent me a dozen copies. They were passionate about it. So I gifted, I mean, obviously I gave them to the guys, but I think I still have like 6 copies. So let me look. And if that's the case, I will happily send you one.
Excellent. That movie is so fun. So fun.
So, guys, thank you for joining us. Script, Andrew, appreciate you guys as always. Folks, thank you. Get excited for Wokebusters. We're going to make this thing break some records. We're going to take it all over the internet. So be prepared and help us spread the word. We really appreciate your guys' support. And that is a bonus step that just takes a quick second, but that does a lot, because remember, we are all dictated by this computer that controls it all. So instead of fighting our computer overlords, we'll figure a way around it. So hitting that thumbs up button and checking out the content really helps us out. But folks, I'm going to play us out with a fun little button. Maybe
Let's
something
do it.
I've never played here on the High Council, but you'll enjoy it.
You don't believe in the Force, do you?
Seen a lot of strange stuff, but I've never seen anything to make me believe there's one all-powerful force controlling everything.